This time we'll reconvene into our budget session. First thing will be our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Supervisor Powers, are you checked in? No, that's not yet. Okay, if you want to use Supervisor Ponzer's, please.
There it goes. Eternal Creator, in a perfect kingdom, no sword is drawn but the sword of righteousness. No strength is known but the strength of love. So mightily spread abroad the spirit of compassion, that all peoples may be gathered under the banner of peace, as brothers and sisters, one with each other. Amen.
Amen.
Maybe I should check to see if I'm sorry. My thing came on.
Okay, we plan to continue with the 2024 county budget hearing pursuant to County Board Rule 4.1. At this time, any reports from committee, commissions, and boards? I do not see any from committee, commissions, boards. Is there any public comments today? Any public comments?
Karen Powers, 2563 Village Lane in Oshkosh, District 25. Just a reminder again today, taking time to thank the directors takes time away from our business. We all like our directors. We all have special departments that we're especially fond of. If you want to make a point about how good a job you think your director is doing, give a note to their boss, the executive, John Damel. Also a reminder, if we don't get this done today, we have to come back tomorrow. We are costing the taxpayers $2,700 in per diems.
Shauna Zestera, 1882 Clairville Road. Thank you for your time, board. I just wanted to share that I provided supervisor with some John and Romans for the jail. And I just want to make a point that I learned last night the nature of a close acquaintance's death. It was a suicide. And I'd like to just read a little bit because this is why I do what I do. And I want to make a point that throwing money to the government to yes, we need them. We need them, but they are not going to. They're limited. So Thomas J. Carpenter, age 45, passed away at home in Neenah. His parents, Steve and Deborah Carpenter Van Densen, grew up in Omro. His parents were active in the bus ministry at Wildwood Baptist. As a young child, he accepted Christ as his personal Savior. Tom was confident in his eternal destination because of his personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And then gives the scriptures. He graduated from Wildwood Christian School in 1995 and Pensacola Christian College with a bachelor's degree in computer science in 2000. He loved traveling. A few of his memorable trips with his parents and brother's family went to the Grand Canyon, etc. He married Jacqueline Fletcher in 2011 in Wapaka. They knew each other since childhood, enjoyed motorcycles. God blessed them with two beautiful daughters, Kaylee and Liliana, whom he adored. They especially enjoyed hugging, etc. He wanted his daughters to drink as much chocolatey, milkety as possible, spending time playing and laughing with his girls, nieces and nephews. He most recently worked for Sargento Cheese in Hilbert. He found great joy in being able to give out cheese to family and friends. He also repurposed paper from work to print covers for Bibles for the ministry of bearing precious seed. These covers were used on almost 1 million scriptures that were shipped around the world. And I just went through those pieces of paper volunteering at the print shop, putting seconds off to the side. You know, I have a friend, fellow supervisor who volunteers there. We are limited in what we can do as supervisors. We do need a power greater than ourselves. And we are vulnerable. And I just want to say that we need to really be careful not to think that government itself is going to save us. He died of a very sad, tragic death. There were 3 people that suicided in that area. I just thank the coroner and everybody, but I just want to say that I'm very aware of our vulnerability. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the board this morning? Anyone else? Anyone wishing to speak to the board? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, we'll close that part. Okay, my report is, I'm glad you're all sitting down. I plan to be done with the whole thing today. It's going to be a long day, but it's 3 days. A lot of you've got things to do. I know this is what you're elected for, is this, but I think that we should be done with this today. So I ask that you stay on budget subjects, and go ahead and not talk about something that's gone beyond. That we just sit to the subject. If it's okay, we're going to have health come up here right shortly. Stick to the health. So, and don't. Pardon? Well, if you're all in favor of it, I'm in favor of the 2-minute timer, but then you won't all get your questions in, so. Right. So it'll be 2 questions for 2 minutes. So they just like it's supposed to be at county board. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. I'll do a roll call vote. All those in favor of that do signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. That's carried. Now, just so you know, it's going to be a little bit more on our clerk here because she's by herself, so she's got to be doing that and back and forth. So if some of them get missed and they get a few seconds here or there, don't be jumping on her. Excuse me. So, you okay with that? So, that is our plans, and we plan to be done today through the whole thing. I know some of you got to leave early. Supervisor Belleville asked to be excused today. So other than that, we have a quorum, and so we will be starting. And the first one up will be public health.
Good morning. All right, in your budget book, public health starts on page 290. Significant changes for this year are increase in revenue, primarily from new funding for lead abatement. We've been very successful in a new program in lead abatement that we launched over the past year, and have been able to attract additional funding from the state, combined funding from the feds as part of HUD funds. So that's part of that budget. And then the other significant revenue change is a Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance, COSUP grant. That is funding that you've already heard about, but you probably haven't talked about it that way. You've heard the sheriff talk about programming him in the jail. You've heard about solutions recovery, providing services in the jail, rapid response team, the success of that. That all started with public health funding and public health grant. And so public health is actually funding the rapid response team. We have the contract with Solutions to provide those services in the jail. And that's also another reflection in our budget that has some significance this year. Overall, in terms of our levy, we have very little increase in levy, less than 1%. The TO count is the same. We do have some position changes and requests for those changes in there. Every position change has an offset. So the impact fiscally is minor. We really took to heart the adjustments from pay plan. That was really needed, and I want to thank the board for supporting that. It's really helped and will continue to help us have stability in our workforce and to be able to, recruit quality people to this organization. So, with that, I think certainly in public health, we wanted to make sure that we could do our part to, help keep the county fiscally in good shape, and so really try to absorb as much of those increases as possible within our budget and come to you with a budget that reflects that and it doesn't put a significant strain on the limited levy and the limited amount of funds that we're able to increase our overall levy by. And when you look at public health budget overall, I urge you to think of it as an investment. When you look at a little over $1.8 million in levy being applied, 2.5% of the total levy of the county, you get $8 million in services for that. And so that levy is really the root. If you think of, us as a tree, it's really the roots of what we have. And from that, we're able to leverage significant other funding programs and services, from that levy. So certainly encourage you to continue investing. Every dollar invested in public health and in prevention has a payback in the community. So if we're looking for return on investment, public health is one of those places where you can get a lot in return. Programs, the return on investment varies based on those programs. Federal programs do really well. If you think about dollars invested in things like, smoking prevention or WIC, the payback is 30, 40 to 1 on those investments. And investments at the local level have returns on investment too. So every dollar spent in public health has some savings moving forward. Unfortunately, those savings aren't always immediate, and they're not always back to the county. They're back to the community as a whole. And some of the programs that we work on take some time to have an impact that's measurable. That could be a generation, but those are really wise investments. So in terms of budget, there isn't a whole lot more to say because we're coming in pretty flat. Just a few concerns that, and in the spirit of keeping things moving, a few concerns that I have about, things moving forward is, we have increasing needs occurring in our community right now. We're not meeting basic needs, and the problem is getting worse. Key areas where we really need some additional work and focus right now include access to childcare. Childcare costs keep people out of the workforce. They keep people at home. They keep people from making an income. Our WIC client load increased during the pandemic. There was higher need, but we also had an ease in access of receiving services. And really, I thought, hey, if we aren't having to have people come in, we're able to do work over the phone, it's easier for them to access services. We had obviously a drop in no-show rate, and we had an increase in participation. I just heard from our WIC staff yesterday that our caseloads are continuing to increase. We have the highest caseloads that we've ever had, and we're past the pandemic, right? I mean, we're hopefully in some period of economic recovery here, yet people that have needs are continuing to increase, and we can see that in the services that we offer. Housing is another area where, we're doing work, right? I mean, the health department wrote the $10.3 million NIF grant, and we're getting work done in the community, but we're still having an increasing unaffordability and accessibility to housing. And so that's another area where we really need some support so we can continue working with the community to find good solutions. Mental health and substance use, I probably don't even need to say much, right? You've been hearing a ton about all of the work and investments that we've been making. The health department, started the overdose fatality review team several years ago. We fund the project coordinator for that position, and we've come up with dozens of recommendations on how to improve the conditions in this community. And many of those are being carried out. That's the kind of work that we need to keep doing and keep pulling the community as a whole together with and aligning around. So with that, any questions?
Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, this is not an easy question for me to ask, but I feel like I must ask it. In reviewing all of the budgets across every department, I was given a breakdown of organizational chart. I noticed an enigma with the Department of Health that I would like you to explain. No other department did this at this volume. You have 5 new positions. One is only an add in the staff. The others are a change in classification. And no other department did that, especially to this volume. Would you please address, because what it looks like, honestly what it looks like is a reclassification to give higher wages over and above or different than the 4% and 5% raise.
Sure. All of the positions that are changes in the budget are offset by other positions. We're asking for a full-time deputy director of public health position. Yes, that position was asked for last year, but it was asked for from the board as an amendment. It wasn't included in our budget. This year, it's included in our budget and as a part of our ask, and that's being offset by the elimination of a program evaluator position. The full-time accountant position that's in the budget is offset by an accounting associate position. We desperately need, we've had a turnover of 4 accounting associates in about as many years. And the skills that are required for that position have grown tremendously. The amount of funding sources that are necessary to be managed, the amount of financial reporting that's required for all of those, us being able to help support as a fiscal agent, others. Is that timer for me too? Okay. It's all right. So that's the position that, so we really need to get stability in that position, and if we have turnover, be able to recruit a really well qualified person. And so, yeah, you could consider that a reclassification. The public health aides that we have right now, 2 of them in WIC, 1 of them in our other public health services. We're asking for a reclassification to an administrative associate 3. That is for multiple reasons. One, they back each other up and perform similar duties. public health aide is a little harder to recruit for. An administrative associate 3 is much easier to recruit for. It's a pretty standardized job description. We can introduce, some variability with that. And yeah, it's a very small pay increase, but I think it'll help us in the long run in terms of cross-training and support for those positions for each other. Adding a community health worker position, and that's at the elimination of a public health nurse position. So it is a reclass. It's a down reclass. It saves money. We need staff from communities that we're serving. We need better linkages with those communities, and having people from communities that we're trying to make an impact in working with us will help us be more successful. And then the only increase in FTE is a WIC nutritionist that we're taking from part-time to full-time. And I just explained that, we're at record caseloads. It's a fully federally funded program, and we need the extra capacity. The nutritionists that we have right now are all part-time, and having at least one full-time nutritionist, so there's 4 total, will help us also meet requirements of the WIC program in terms of having a project nutritionist on site at all times. So that's the breakdown.
You have time left, Supervisor Hanson.
Just as a follow-up, I appreciate that, but every department in this county is having a problem filling and keeping positions. Not unique. What you've done is very different to every other department, and that's what I'm having a problem squaring in my head. Highway didn't do this. Parks didn't do it. They didn't change classifications. I get what you're saying. This is just an enigma, and I will let the others speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions, and that is, you talked about increasing needs and increasing needs for housing. I'm wondering about duplication with other departments that we have within the county. For example, the UW Extension, they've got their Food Wise program. Is that a duplication of services? They've got their financial gentleman there who goes around and talks about finances. I'm wondering if that's a duplication. And are you being inundated with mandates from government to have more documentation?
So we don't really work on housing with UW Extension, although I've met with Chris View. We've tried to be deliberate about how we can complement one another with our programming where possible, how we can support one another in our individual missions that are somewhat complementary. That work is continuing to go on. We don't have any new particular reporting burdens beyond what we have for our most of our funding sources right now. That hasn't changed in any significant way. As far as housing goes, we've been working in the housing area as one of the determinants of health. I mean, what determines your health? Yeah, the most, right? Income and housing. Stability in housing. If you don't have stable housing, it's hard to go to school. If you don't have stable housing, it's hard to keep a job. And so it is a public health priority for us to be in that arena. But from that standpoint, we're not developers and we're not builders, right? All we can do is we can collect information, share, report out on the conditions in the community, pull together community partners, write the NIF grant, and continue to work. The county executive's office has an individual, Lou, who's got a ton of experience in housing. We've been meeting with her. How can we complement one another and support one another in the whole housing continuum, from homelessness, right, to home ownership, and everything that's in between. what are the impacts, when people are evicted? What are the impacts when people have substance use issues? How do we create a continuum of housing that helps people move along, but when they fall back, also helps pick them back up again? And so it's a very complex, long-term, costly issue. Housing prices aren't helping, and so that's, our role is to really help highlight the issues, bring partners together, identify solutions, share those with the community, engage the community in working on those things.
Thank you for those answers. It would be advantageous for me to see the UW Extension coming to the health department to talk with supervisors about how y'all are working together and vice versa. And then the other thing that I came up with is that we've got the warming shelter and tiny houses, and apparently those are not enough. I hear that there are people on the streets for the warming shelter at night. So where do you go from there? Thank you.
Sure, I'll very briefly address that, that's part of our work now. We certainly work with Day by Day, are familiar, with the staff there. We, participate in housing coalition discussions. Recently the lead abatement to try to create more safe housing. And so it's a work in progress. And yes, we continue to have a challenge, and it's not getting any better right now. It's actually getting a little worse. And so we need more effort and more participation in public-private partnerships, additional funding locally, additional supports to keep people in housing. The costs when people lose housing go way beyond the cost of just housing, right? It's, if they lose, access to transportation or access to, their employment, or, have, chronic stressors within the household that, it leads to, a violence and abuse, and it sets people back, and it sets our community back. And that's why we need to invest more in, these determinants and basic needs of health, like, housing and childcare, mental health, substance use. Those will pay the biggest dividends for us in the long run. We may say, yes, we've got more crime, and so let's do more law enforcement. Well, yeah, yes, and let's try to do some things that prevent the need for that to begin with. The more successful we are in public health, hopefully the less services are needed by, be provided by the Human Services Department and by our law enforcement agencies. So it's the basic needs that really matter in the long term. Thank you.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Guerin, good morning. Thank you for your time. The proposed Deputy Director of Public Health in the table of organization here, from a day-to-day perspective in operations, what is this person going to be doing?
Sure. What I had outlined in materials that I had sent to Supervisor Hanson and to the HR department is that position, first and foremost, would be classified, between the supervisor and the health officer, would essentially establish an additional succession plan, also some stability with any turnover in supervisors and or the director. That position would work with me in tandem to help engage community and all of the stuff that I've just talked to you about. We don't do enough community engagement. We don't do enough public-private partnerships. We don't write enough grants, even though we write a lot. We are limited by the staff that we have and what we can bring to the table. I just told you we can, by adding, some root capacity, in terms of our staffing, and almost all of our levy is staff. It's not stuff. If you look at our budget, all of the stuff that's in our budget is all grants, and it's the people that are in the health department that make those connections, those bring those funds in, and I need more capacity and help with that.
Okay. Next question I have is about your proposed accountant position. Looking here, I see the finance department is adding one management analyst position, human services is adding one full-time financial associate 2 position. I understand these aren't accountants per se, but my question for you is, can't you work with the existing accountant structure that we have in this county instead of one for your own?
So we have a full-time accounting associate in our office now, and we've had one in our office for decades. We need, with all of the programming that we have, we really need somebody in-house that knows our programs and grants for a variety of reasons. One, they have to work with the staff that are running those grants to understand what's allowable and what's not allowable. They need to be able to work with our staff on the reporting. And they also, we need also a level of accounting that includes business management. And to have an accountant that can provide us with a little bit more detail and feedback about how we're using our resources is helpful. We work closely with finance, finance and purchasing. Could this person, and we've had these discussions about, is it better to have a centralized, finance department where, everybody is contained within finance? Is it better to have a decentralized model? We've had this combination model for quite a while. Larger departments need to have fiscal staff within the organization that understand the day-to-day operations and are able to then help with our staff directly because they know their programs. The level of expertise that we need in the health department has grown, and that's why we're asking for a reclass.
Thank you.
Supervisor Defferding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regards to that answer that you provided, is that for your accountant for public health, or is that for the deputy?
The question was for the accountant.
The accountant, okay. So, let's just go with, I'll ask the question is, if you did not have that accountant, would you work with the administration department then to handle those, the money coming in from grants for public health?
Well, of course. I mean, we need that expertise in our department. I mean, we have dozens of funding sources, and there's plenty of work, if not more than enough work, for one person to do just managing public health. But yes, I mean, if the county decides they want to go to a centralized model and we work with an accountant in finance instead of within public health, then that's what we do.
Okay, all right. That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Supervisor Gabbard.
On the budget and only the budget, Doug. And a simple question. At the beginning of your presentation, you said your department contracts with Solution Recovery. Did I hear that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. They've been successful in what they're all about. Do you have a number you could throw at me at what we pay them for that contract? Or is it not a yearly? It's not.
I think we've just currently, and Ashley's here in the back to help me out with some of these more detailed questions on that particular grant. But I believe right now we've projected, roughly $660,000 over 2 years for them to support the peer response team, the rapid response peer response team. We had started that peer response team with them with a different grant a couple years ago now, and so this is a way to continue it. And so yeah, it's over the next couple of years, it's probably about $660,000.
So they have their own entity, they work with you, but they also work with you and the sheriff's department.
Solutions is when we wrote that COSEP grant, it included funding for the project management of the OFR team that all those recommendations have come from. It included the peer response team funding because we piloted that and it looked like it was going to be a good success, and so we wanted to continue that. And then the third part of that was is actually being used for the crime victim crisis response team. We were originally going to put a bereavement coordinator in the coroner's office, But that evolved into utilizing the Victim Crisis Response Team, which is an existing asset in the community, and by boosting that team, we were able to accomplish what we were looking for in that grant. So while we work with Solutions as partners in OFR and in substance use, and to some extent mental health, they're a contractor for us. They're just working with the jail. They don't work in public health.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Supervisor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to go back to the reclassification question that was first asked by Supervisor Hansen. Were the reclassifications, were the majority of them that are presented in your budget a result of the compensation plan that was approved by the board earlier this year?
The reclassifications are really based more on operations than the pay plan.
So they're matching current job descriptions, what your employees are doing, with where they should be paid on that scale.
Well, yes, and I mean, I guess the reclassification is a better reflection of what they're actually doing and how we use them in the department and who we want them to back up in the case of the administrative associates, what they're actually doing and what we need in the case of the accountant position, and for the community health worker, where we're trying to head and what talent we want to have in the department.
So the reclassification then is a better reflection of the work being performed.
Yes.
Okay. And because of that, we also passed a compensation plan, which is a reflection where these job descriptions would be placed on that scale.
Yes. There's really, outside of the evaluator to director position, there's really little fiscal impact in all of these changes, so that's not a driving factor.
Yes, I understand that, but I just wanted to make the point that reclassification involves shifting, matching people with the work that's actually, and jobs descriptions with the work that's being performed.
Yep, that's correct.
And that usually is associated with appropriate compensation. And I did email you about these things, and you mentioned that it's an estimated $487,000 in labor increases with those reclassifications and the results of the pay study. And you worked really hard to absorb as much of that as possible. And it resulted in a levy increase of only 1%, or about $18,000 to that item in the budget.
Yes, that's what we presented, and I guess just for clarification, if you look at 2023 labor costs and you look at 2024 labor costs, they've risen in our department by about $487,000. In terms of the positions that we have, the regular positions that we have, there's a small fiscal impact from these reclasses, and I think it's, and I don't have that number right off the top of my head here, but it's probably in the range of maybe $60,000, $50,000 maybe being from the deputy director position, and of course those are all budgeted at that's not a position that's in our department right now. It's it's budgeted with full benefits and everything. We tried to absorb as much of that. Because we had about 11% increase in wages across the department, and we really tried to absorb as much as that as we could to minimize the impact on levy. So, if that helps any of you with that, thanks.
Yes, thank you. And I just want to remind everyone that the board approved the compensation study along with the new plan, and so we see those things reflected in this proposed budget. Thank you.
Supervisor Ellenberger.
Thank you, Director. Just to follow up on something that she just said, we did approve the salary schedule, but we did not approve the position last year when it was brought to us. I'm going to try to keep this as much in the budget-related questions as I possibly can. So as you can see, if you've been in these meetings lately, we're trying desperately to tear down the silos and try to find out where we can combine services. For example, the accountant position, after I read that, I would love to see some of the correspondence too that everybody else has gotten they're reading this stuff, because I was having issues with some of these things, and I would have liked to have seen some of these correspondence to explain it a little bit better. It would be great if I could see some of those. I guess the accountant position, that one I was a little skeptic with, that we do have an accounting team, we do have the administrative team, and we're trying to bring those silos down. So that was the one thing. Also, you were talking about housing. We have over 400 vouchers alone in the Winnebago County for 1 to 5 bedrooms. And that's not even counting the court towers and so forth through the Winnebago Housing Authority, plus the Oshkosh Housing Authority. Do you coordinate with them? Because I'm on that committee or commission, and I've never seen you come to one of our meetings. Also, are you working with Human Services more so? Because they have quite a few things that could help also. And you were talking about the bereavement thing. I'm going to try to get in super quick here. The bereavement, and that sounds like an amazing position, a bereavement counselor. To me, that would have been something I would have been really gung-ho to see on your thing. So there you go.
All right, let me give that a shot. I'll start with the last first. Bereavement coordinator was originally planned and worked on with the medical examiner's office. Medical examiner declined after planning, and our next solution, which is actually probably a better solution, was to supplement the victim crisis response team to essentially do what we were looking for. And you might have to help me out here. The accounting position, like I said, we've had an accountant embedded in our department, just like Parkview and Human Services and other departments that really need to have that close fiscal tie. We work very closely with the finance department. Director Collard may have some things to say about whether or not we're better off with those accountant positions embedded in departments versus not being in those departments and perhaps working across departments. The big challenge we have is that, in the larger departments, there's a lot of programs and a lot to know, and it's a lot of detail that it would be difficult to be able to, to back someone else up in another department not knowing about their programs. So it's just tough. It's about efficiency. It's more efficient for us to have someone that understands what's actually happening in our department and is doing that reporting for us, rather than trying to learn, reporting for another, grant or program in another department. Housing. So yeah, I'm one guy. I can only get to so many places, and part of the reason we need this deputy director position is that so much of my time is in meetings that it's really tough for me to find extra time to really work with community partners. Lindsay Erickson is on our staff. She goes to the Housing Coalition meetings. She works with her supervisor, Ashley Ramlow, and yes, we try to complete the loop there as much as possible. Housing is a really complex issue, and we're in our infancy in terms of getting some strong community-wide solutions. Our community health improvement plan will be worked on this next year. Our community health assessment will be coming out later this year, very soon. That'll be highlighting a lot of the challenges and measurements from our community that hopefully we can rally around to identify solutions, engage funders, and engage our community orgs so that we can, have some collective impact on some priority areas. So lots of work going on in the background on that, and I'd be happy to talk to you more about that.
Have you been, and the Human Services?
And Human Services.
Are you coordinating with them too? A lot.
Bill and I connect on a regular basis. Our supervisors work with supervisors in Human Services and various program areas. One of the strongest linkages is probably with behavioral health. We certainly have a little overlap in with WIC and economic support, we're making sure that we're making referrals, making sure that people that qualify for one program know that they qualify for others. Anything we can do to try to help lift them up and out of the situation that they're in.
Supervisor Panzer.
Yes, thank you. I have a quick question, and on that, it comes under your categories of operating and contractual services. Both of them have other, and on the other is higher than the entire category. Usually I look at others as a combination of miscellaneous, and they're the highest number on those two. So could you explain that? I believe the number is 53030. They're the highest. You know, if they're the highest, I would think there should be an explanation, that's all.
Just want to make sure I'm finding it here. So you're under other operating,
Yes, other operating and contractual services.
Underneath.
Explain what you're spending $750,000 on.
all right.
Well, that's what I'm
Okay,
asking.
other contracting services. Yep.
Oop, my time's up.
So the other contract, that line is a combination of contracted services from grants. And actually, that line item is 100% grant funded. It's, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, at least 8 different grants that make up that line item. Everything from lead funding, from HUD, from the state, the COSUP grant that I just talked to you about in contracting with solutions, a drug-free communities grant, another overdose to action grant, which is a handout that describes that on your desk, and then 2 other grants with the Medical College of Wisconsin and UW Medical School for projects that we're working on in mental health, behavioral health with New Mental Health Connection.
That's for the contractual, correct?
Yes.
Okay, then the other one was operational. I just, when it says other, that, you know what I'm trying to get at.
Yep. So other operating supplies, $607,588. There's $480,000 in there for lead. About $45,000 for one of the mental health grants. So 86% of that category is all grant funded. Only 14% is other operations within the department.
Okay, it's just when it says other, I have to question it, that's all.
Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Director. Most of my questions were actually answered through the others, so that's great about being last. You can kind of get all of that. So I'm just left with 2 comments really quick. The first is, if I look at the budget historically, we'll start in 19, right? So 2019, it was 4.3. 2020, it was 4.9. 21 was 6.2, which I think there was something going on 20 and 21. So I get that. Yeah. 22 was 5.5. 23 was 6.8, and now we're at 8.1. And unless I'm wrong, I believe that this department probably has the highest level of growth in terms of the budget itself, right? So, and we're just shy of $2 million from the heat of the pandemic. So it is somewhat of a disconnect for me to see this significant growth. And I get totally what you're saying about having a holistic solution. for all of the issues that we're finding ourselves in these days, especially with drug overdoses and things of that nature. But I do think that we have to have more of a conversation about a holistic and not overcorrect in one way or the other. And one of my concerns is that we are possibly investing in social programs maybe a little heavy versus law enforcement, at least this year. So I'm just going to leave it with that comment that as I look at the budget, I do see that increasing significantly, and it's of concern, especially as I consider future ability to substantiate all of the bureaucracy that we're putting in place. Thank you.
Sure. And I can just, if I would also urge you to look at what the change in levy over that time period is. That's probably much, much less significant. We've been, in our programming and in our intent on working on population health, we've been effective in recruiting additional funds. We've been, we look ahead. What is on the horizon in terms of funding sources that we're aware of? How do we best position ourselves to bring those dollars into Winnebago County? And so, we have brought a lot of additional funds in, and that's the significant increase this year. It's just more grant funding. It's, lead abatement funding to improve our community. It's more funding for, substance use. And, there's others that we're looking at, but we have limited capacity. The more you help us, right, the more we can bring back, and we'll continue to do that.
Right, I get that. I just want to make sure that you understand is that growth in revenue is not proportionate to the growth in expenses. So we're growing expenses faster than we are in recovering in any sort of revenue. So net, we do have to be a little careful with that, just a little. Just so as we go in the future, that we're not going to get in a position where we're going to be having to go back to the levy in a bigger way. If these funding resources dry up, yet the infrastructure is in place, we're going to be in a pretty bad position. So it's a watch out as we think about planning in the future.
Point taken. All of our grants are reimbursement. So if we don't spend the money, we don't get the money. And every year you're gonna, I'm gonna have to come to you with a budget. And if that means we have to cut programs or add levy, it's going to end up being your decision. So, from year to year, you're the ones that are in control of that. I don't want to be afraid to go after funding for 2 years or 3 years or 5 years because it might end at some point in the future. We've been able to accomplish a lot in the funding that we've brought in, and that success is bringing us more opportunity. So, I appreciate your support on that too. Thanks.
Supervisor Stira.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Guerin, I wondered, is there ever too much shared revenue? I mean, is this just, do you have any concerns about getting grants and how that could affect the county aspect of government?
When we look at in public health at shared revenue, Wisconsin is 48th or 49th in the nation at the bottom of how much funding is actually invested in public health from state sources. So, no, I mean, we just went through what we call the Foundational Public Health Services Assessment, assessing our department and our staff and our capabilities against, what we consider to be the national standard for public health.
Okay.
And I mean, I could map out for you the next 13 positions that we hire just from doing that evaluation. There's a lot that we could do more. We just don't do it because we don't have the funds, we don't have the capacity. We focus in on what we can do, and try to, we just leverage that the best we can until we can find additional resources. So
Okay.
no, I don't think shared revenue is overstated. We're one of the worst in the nation.
Okay, and my comment to that would be, from my perspective, there can be a feeling of control at the county level, I won't get into that, but what I would like to, if, I spoke with a resident of Winnebago County after visiting the office, and you remember that meeting. I was at the office, and one of the things is I had some concerns about what I saw at the office, and I was able to address those with you. There were pride-themed decorations. I'm just going to cut to the chase here, that I saw in the back hallway. And when I say pride-themed, I'm saying rainbow. I'm saying, and a lot of us are triggered by that. So the primary focus, I know, is on inclusion. We want as many people to feel as welcome as possible. Does the LGBTQ paraphernalia accomplish that, or does it discourage those with other religious and social values from wanting to engage with the Winnebago County Health Department?
Yes, right.
It is, but it's something I saw, Mr. Chairman, and I understand, but we have to look at all the constituents of the county. And if some of us don't feel comfortable going there, why can't I ask them that question?
I'll let you answer that question, but let's keep it to the budget.
Okay.
It has to be something with the budget, so that would be with the money end of it.
Okay, all right, thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Estera, we're here to serve everyone, and we identify where we apply our resources based on where we can accomplish the most good. And it's people that don't have their basic needs met, that seek us for services, is where we apply them. And we engage a variety of populations to better understand what their needs are. And so you're gonna, if having a pamphlet about how to talk to your kids about sexuality, if you find that offensive because it's from Planned Parenthood, I'm sorry about that.
I'm talking about the decorations throughout the hallways and everything I saw that day. I'm sorry, but I know, but he's talking about another issue.
Yeah, and you know what, we have a variety of cultures and religious backgrounds that make up our community. And we are here to embrace and celebrate them all and succeed as a community together. And alienating certain populations, not serving certain populations, disadvantaging some populations, hurts the community as a whole.
Supervisor Sellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director. Can you tell me a little bit about, you talked a little earlier about what the deputy director position would help you do. Can you tell me a little bit about, like, right now, you working 50 hours a week?
You got it.
Okay.
I mean, at less than we were a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and there's still a list of things that maybe a director or at least the department should be doing that we're not getting to. I think,
Yeah.
I think that's helpful for me to contextualize that when department heads are stressed and working, coming in to work Saturdays or Sundays to get a couple hours of quiet work done, that's a problem, that we haven't given you enough resources to do the things, and then for us to be asking you to be in other places really creates an obligation for the board to support that. I want to go to the budget and some of the questions that Supervisor Stafford raised about the growth. Do you know how much your levy has increased in the last 5 years?
Not offhand.
It's decreased by $108,920. So since 2019, before the pandemic, you're actually running a department that has grown its footprint and decreased its levy. And you've done that through a growth of revenue of over $3 million. I just think that's very remarkable and notable, and I'd like to ask for you to comment on some of the factors that went into approximately 150% growth in your revenues, because it looks like some of that is certainly related to COVID, but a lot of it is not. And I was hoping you could talk about the part that isn't and what may remain next year, the year after, and so forth.
Yeah, so the future of funding for us right now, we're winding down this year, or excuse me, in '24, with the last of some COVID funding that's designed to help us reach, populations that have been most significantly impacted from the pandemic. Largely our lower income population. We took some really big hits as a community, from COVID, and we haven't recovered. Recovery, below average income or below ALICE income, households takes a lot longer than it does for median income and higher households. So that funding is going away. There has been a push at the federal level. What was buried during the pandemic was that public health overall at a national level is severely underfunded. It's severely under capacity. And so as I mentioned, if I had more money, I already plan to spend it. I already know where we'd use it. And so there has been a push at the federal level to help improve public health infrastructure and the core capacity of health departments. And even here in Wisconsin, we're working on that through doing assessments to assure that a minimum level of basic public health services is available to every resident of the state. You go to a different county, you're going to see a different set of services, and we want to make sure that we have a minimum standard level of services in every community, which we just don't have right now. So that infrastructure funding is going to help address some of that. Certainly, we've seen a big increase in areas where we have increased need, substance use and mental health. You can't really separate them. So, we're seeing funding opportunities that are there. Other areas that I'm looking for additional funding and hope to see it come from the discussions at the federal level is more chronic disease prevention. The diseases that occur over a lifetime, arthritis and heart disease and Alzheimer's and, diabetes. We need to do a better job of trying to prevent those diseases that occur over a lifespan. And there's likely to be some funding available for that. It's being pushed off a little bit farther than I would hope, but we're working internally for that. And then we've been successful in some additional funding related to maternal and child health. We need healthy pregnancies, we need healthy infants in order to have healthy adults. And that's an area that we really need to pay more attention to so that we're supporting young families. And I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.
Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Doug. Out of an absolute sense of fairness, you've mentioned grant funding, and there's county funding on the lead abatement program. Just as a defense of that, you and I have talked about that, and it's been a while. I would like this county and the board to know that how many homes you're servicing, because I was surprised there's that many, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. I think we've probably got close to 20 in the pipeline that either are done or in the pipeline now. We're contracting with the state for about another 25 in the next year. It may sound like a lot, but it's not. We're just scratching the surface here in terms of housing stock in Winnebago County, especially in the older areas of our larger cities, Oshkosh and Neenah. So we've been working for years to try to attract that funding. We just haven't been high enough on the need scale, compared to like cities like Green Bay and Milwaukee, to attract that. Now that we can and we have, and we've built a program, we can hopefully really bring in some more resources and make even a bigger dent. So thank you.
Thank you. Those efforts are not unnoticed. Thank you.
Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make a clarification, and that is that my concern is about going into the future, right? So we build these programs, and these are great programs, so I'm not commenting on the validity of the programs themselves, right? But we institute these programs, we're doing great things. We're adding infrastructure. We're adding staff to support these things. And we've been very blessed to find sources of funds to substantiate that. That's why the levy has been decreased, because we're finding other sources. The watch out is that we're creating this infrastructure assuming that we're going to have those funds available in the future. And if we don't, which is a good likelihood, I mean, there are a lot of forecasts that aren't necessarily the best for the future, at least for the first, maybe a year or two after this next. So the watch out is that we're going to create this infrastructure that we're going to have to support, or there's a desire to support. And if that's the case, then it's going to have to come from somewhere. It's going to either come from a budget or from undesignated fund, or it's going to come from the levy. So that is the watch out when we have a funding source that isn't necessarily one that we control. It's one that we are given. And we just have to be aware of that going in the future. That was my only point, that there's a liability there that we have to be aware of, and it should be somewhat concerning going in to say, okay, we see this, we know it, and we're comfortable with it. But just to say, hey, in the past it's worked out, so it'll work out in the future, that's not necessarily, that's not really a good strategy for, sound fiscal management. So, thank you.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I see a rainbow, I think of Noah's Ark. Oops, that's not on the budget, sorry.
Thank you. Supervisor Ernst.
Thank you. I think even if funding is contingent on future events that we can't necessarily control, including the availability of grants, I think it's important to note that there is no alternative presented to accessing that grant money. If we're going to deny programming based on the chance that grants might not be available, then we really have no right funding any program based on based on the fact that it might at some point in the future fail to meet its aim. I think given that funding sources are available, that the health department is doing what they can to access them, and that normal operations means that they will continue to find new sources of funding, and that just saying, oh, that's not reliable is not a source of funding, that we should probably continue to help, as the director said, back the people in the department with this funding, right? Most of your programming is based on these grants, which, yes, might be temporary, but, are always kind of available, right?
Yeah, I mean, the key to the success of many of these grants is evaluating your work, evaluating your success, measuring what you've done, demonstrating that you've had impact. And, ultimately, if we lose funding in a particular program area and we can show you, hey, this is our return on investment for this program, it's going to be up to you to decide whether you want to fund it or not. So, yeah, I mean, programs that come and they go, and it's just a part of how we operate.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor Stera, this is your second time.
Yep, Director Guerin, I just am looking at the front page of our binder here, and I studied that. And I just see a lot of broad effect, involvement that you have in the community. And I guess I'm just concerned about that overreaching, outreach, I won't say overreach, but just the equity in transportation and housing and all of these different things. And what I was trying to say before, and I will be quick, is that there's a lot of constituents that I have who have been suspicious through 1108 and so on. And when we look at your broad impact at the county level, I'm just concerned. Any comments?
I'm not sure how to answer that one. We have a very broad set of programs, and those programs are listed in our budget book. Most that come to our Board of Health or that come and visit us are surprised by the amount of work that we're able to do. We have an extraordinarily dedicated team, a lot of deep thinkers and a lot of strategizing about, where we can have the most impact. That takes us in a lot of places. And we are most effective when we are in the community, meeting with the community, understanding their challenges and needs, and translating that into information for you, and in translating that into information for funders. And so no regrets. I wish we weren't spread so thin. I wish we could do more. And we'll continue to do the best we can. That's all I can promise.
Supervisor Nichols, I believe this is your second time.
It is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Guerin noted earlier in his presentation that for every dollar invested in public health, at least two are brought back to the community. And I just want to offer a counterweight to Supervisor Stafford's argument, and that is that spending on an investment in public health and human services will hopefully decrease the chances of someone engaging with law enforcement and becoming involved in the criminal justice system, which are the two most expensive systems in the state of Wisconsin. Thank you.
Supervisor Burrow on Zoom.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Director Garin, I've got a global comment and then a specific. From a global perspective, again, being a newer board member, very constituent-driven, when I hear positions us to bring in dollar grants, getting shared revenue, we're one of the worst in the country. Just as a reminder to everybody, this is still taxpayer dollars that we're talking about. So I want to then dwell specifically on the accountant position as far as reclassification. You had talked about several different things. One is it's difficult to keep people in that position. You had your own incumbent accountant for years. But I would suggest to the board overall that shared services are a very common model in business. And when you have a shared service model, you challenge whoever provides it, whether it be finance, whether it be administration, to say, this is what I need to support my department. And since yesterday, we had a presentation on priority-based budgeting, which will shape the future of budgeting. Again, the idea of a shared service is maybe something that evolves out of that in a greater way. And so I would certainly suggest consideration for deferring something like that for at least a year. And the last comment I'll make is echoing Supervisor Stafford. Again, as we look at grants in particular of building programs and infrastructure around the source, and if that source dries up, we're coming into a major 2024 with we're not who knows where things are going to end up at the end of the year election wise. That could have winds of change behind it. So there again, I would say just from a word of caution, just from an advice perspective. So just general comments I wanted to pass out. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other lights, so I thank you much, Doug.
Thank you.
Next is child support. Don't forget, if you have any amendments, to get them up here to Corporation Council so they can get them written up. Morning.
Good morning. All right, Julie Mabry from Child Support. Nice to see you guys today. Child support budget starts on page 300, if you guys are following along. I don't have anything, well, I guess my major significant changes this year are the 2 attorney positions that are being moved from Child Support Department over to Corporation Council. So that would be the big significant change that you'll see on the child support budget, and what affected, I think, the decrease in child support. Subsequently, along with other expenses that went along with those two positions, licensing, training, stuff like that was, came off the child support budget. You did see that then reflected over in the corporation council budget. So, hopefully I can keep it short and sweet for you guys, and I'll open it up to questions.
You on Zoom? You do have one there? Supervisor Burrow, is your hand up for this, or did you forget to put it down?
It's now down, thanks.
Thank you. Well, you got off easy today. There's no questions. Thank you much.
Yes. Take you guys back on track. Take care, you guys. Have a good day.
Next is Veteran Service.
Raise us up a little bit. Good morning, I'm Jeff Buchholz. I'm the Director of Veteran Services. Our budget starts on page 308, if anybody's following along in the book there. As far as our budget is concerned, we are not asking for any additional positions, any special projects. It's for the most part pretty level from what we've done in the past few years. However, you will see a little bit of a spike, and that spike is strictly due to the wage adjustments and the reslotting. That was difficult to overcome. We weren't able to cut anything from any parts of our budget to make up for that. And coupled with the fact that we have a retirement, one of our staff members is retiring, and he was at a lower he wasn't taking all the benefits, like the healthcare benefits and things like that. So when we budgeted for 2024, we have to plan worst case scenario that the person we're going to hire is going to have a family and they're going to have the full healthcare package for a family. So that cost is reflected in that spike and increase in our levy. As far as significant changes are concerned, really the only two things I wanted to highlight was we did receive an additional allowance in our grant funding that we received from the state. It looks good on paper saying 25%, but the reality is it's a $3,500 increase over what we received from the state the previous year. Also, we did receive a one-time supplemental grant from the state. To supplement that grant, it has to be spent by December 31st of 2024. That's included in this year's budget. It is not allowed, when we accepted that grant, it came with stipulations that we're not allowed to cut down on our tax levy or decrease it has to be above and beyond what our services are presently at. Specifically, the target is towards advertising and outreach to get more veterans aware of our offices in the county. Each county veteran service officer received this grant from the state. So that was a $19,000 grant from the state that we have to spend by this year, which we have plans for it. We have a big veteran benefit expo that we're planning in May of 2024. We're teaming up with Calumet out in Gamey, and it's going to be a 2-day benefit expo. We're just going to hit it and try and capture as many veterans as we can, pooling our resources together. So that is really all I had as far as significant increases or significant changes to my budget. I don't want to take up too much time, but I did want to just comment on something. Chairman Egan, I believe you came back from the NACO, was it? You had a...
Oh, yes.
Yes.
WCA, yep.
Had a part of a book that was specifically tailored towards what the veterans, Winnebago County Veteran Service Office is doing. One of the problems that we have in my career field is that the job we do, the things we do, necessarily don't create revenue for the county government. I like this sheet that they presented, and I believe it was sent out to everybody. And I just wanted to, take a moment just to kind of hit on that. If you look at that, that's $97 million that is coming from the federal government and is targeted to the veterans here in Winnebago County alone. That's huge. So even though you don't see like a huge revenue number in our budget, the things that we're doing for our veterans in our community is generating revenue for the county as a whole. That revenue that they're, those benefits that are receiving are, they're going to buy cars, they're going to pay rent, they're going to make it healthcare, more affordable for them. So just wanted to, as long as that was sent out to everybody, just kind of highlight that sheet. So, because I think it does paint a pretty good picture of what we're doing. So, with that, I'll open up to any questions anybody might have.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for adding that on. I don't think I got that that document, or maybe I just missed it. But that was the first thing I wanted to ask you to talk about. $97 million. If that like grant funding was structured, or not grant funding, but if that program funding was structured the way health department or something like that was, we would see that in your both your revenue and expenses. It's a tremendous impact. So I appreciate bringing that number to the board. Last year at the budget, you were talking about I think it was called the PAC Act or something like that had recently been signed, and I was wondering if you can comment on how your team has been able to connect people to that, or if that is if your team has had the capacity, I guess.
Okay, the PACT Act was signed in August of 2022, and it really opened the door to additional benefits for veterans. There's no way to put this. It was a tough year for we had a tough goal. We were so busy. I mean, it was just, there's times where we were actually getting at each other in the office because we were exhausted. The phone calls, the emails, the walk-ins. I mean, it was tough to keep up with. It's slowed down a little bit, but we did a lot of good with that, but it was a lot of work. And it's just because it's something that started in 2022, that doesn't mean that the work's over. I mean, that initial rush, we got through that initial tidal wave that we knew was coming, but we still got a lot of work to do with veterans, and that's part of the Benefit Expo and the advertising and outreach is to connect the veterans with the benefits. So,
I think what I'm curious, what I'm curious then is with all that extra work and all that stress and whatnot in your office, do you need additional people? Because it seems like there's a direct connection to the amount of outreach you can do and the amount of deserved benefits that veterans in our community can be connected with to do those important things like pay their car bill, get stable housing, access recovery programs.
That's a difficult question to answer. We could always use more help. I mean, it is what it is. But we have to. I have to do my best to kind of balance it. And last year would have been nice to have an extra couple people, but going forward, I just we'll be all right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you said last year. I asked you, if you remember, I asked you the same question, and you said the same thing, yeah, well, we'll be all right. And, then you come back, and it's like we're at each other. And I just don't think that's, I just don't know if that's the best, the best way for us to go about this. Think about it. I guess, think about it here for the next few hours.
Thank you. I appreciate the concern. I really do.
Supervisor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only question is that I know that there's talk about it, but about the veteran housing. Is there anything coming up, or you got plans of the future? Because I know like Outagamie County has it, and Brown County has it. We don't have anything.
I know it is a challenge. There's a lot that goes into the housing, way more than I am qualified to, you know, to get into. I mean, as far as Veterans Village is a nonprofit, that is not funded by Outagamie County, along with the one in Brown. Those are nonprofits, and the trick is you have to have you really need a nonprofit to run it. Our staff are not capable to, you know, to manage the tenants and things like that, and still do our job. So it's two parts. First, you got to find the property. You got to buy the property or fund it some way. Either a nonprofit has got to take it over or buy it. But you also have to have people to run it, and it's a pretty big tasking. I mean, we have, you know, the nonprofits that we talked to, and we discussed. We had a meeting with the state about this situation. It's not something we've given up on. It is. It just takes time, and you have to find the right. It's got to be the right situation. You know, you just can't go buy an old schoolhouse and turn it into an apartment building. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, a lot more than I ever imagined. So it is something we want. I want it desperately, but at the same time, I'm not going to rush and waste money and throw money at something that, you know, we don't have it a well planned out. I hope that answers your question, because it is a concern.
Supervisor Haran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've just got a few things to say. What is done, and I'm sorry I'm going to be wasting a little bit of time, but what is done by our veterans makes us safer at home. And in my head and heart, whatever we can do to help support them is huge. I have a son who was a wildland firefighter. His enemy was fire out west. I understand what this is personally. So I wanted to say thank you. We need to help you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff, my dad saw active duty during World War II. He's gone now. Most of the greatest generation, they're gone. Still have Korean vets. You have Vietnam era. Those are the baby boomers. And it seems to me your job is only going to get heavier as the baby boomers are aging and have seen time to service, have done service during Vietnam. If you're going to need more help, I think you should think about that for your next budget. Because if you're already understaffed, it's only going to get worse as the boomers start coming in. Thank you.
Supervisor Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not even a question, Jeff, just a comment. As commander of our Legion post in Winnie County, I'm well aware that our veteran service staff sends somebody to Winnie County a minimum of once a month. They sit down with people that I didn't even know that were veterans and work very hard to get them the benefits that they deserve. Thank you much for everything you're doing.
No, thank you, sir. I mean, that's been a very, very good relationship we have with Winneconne and the American Legion Post out there. And I was appreciative to see that the AMRO Community Center was approved on that part of that Spirit funding. That's where we'll stage again in the AMRO community. It was unfortunate that we lost that community center because that was our outreach location. But now that that's coming back, it's going to be beneficial to us again in our outreach efforts in AMRO. So that was huge.
I just have a question. Previous Supervisor Snyder, he was always after something to get passed through, I believe it was Congress or something. Did that bill ever get passed?
No, it did not, sir. It got shot down again. He's talking about the CVSO Act, and that was to get additional funding to help cover the costs of our office. There's there's voices, in Washington, around the country that realize the job we're doing here at the state, the county level, and they want the federal we're doing a lot of the federal government's job. I mean, without us, veterans would have to go down to Milwaukee, hope to sit on some telephone triage for hours trying to get through to somebody. But they realize that we're having an impact on their benefits, and there is a push to have some of the federal government fund our office to reduce the levy on the taxpayers here locally. But it just stalls out. It gets so far, and then it gets in the political battles. They're back and forth with each other, and it's just died. 3 years in a row now. It's frustrating.
Supervisor Dowling on Zoom.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, and thank you, Director, for being here today. I just wanted to comment on the comment you made earlier about, I believe the quote was, worst case scenario if the employee has a family. And I hope that we can all remember that Winnebago County is an equal opportunity of employment, and that we do respect and hire people with families in our county. Thank you.
That was a poor choice of words on my part. That you are correct. In fact, we're not even allowed to ask questions about that during an interview. If you look at our applications, there's nothing about marriage or kids, and we don't ask those questions. So we go in, we're looking for the best qualified person. But we do have to plan for the most expensive benefit package that's out there. So that should have been a more appropriate use. If that, hopefully that gives you some comfort that we do not, it's not even asked at any part, it's not any part of the applications. We're just looking for the best candidate.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the clarification.
All right. I thank you, and I thank you, the people that you're servicing, for what you've done for us. And we'll continue on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next is Human Services.
Well, good morning. I'm Bill Topol. I'm your Director of Human Services. For those that don't know me, been here 17 years as Director, 4 in another county. This is my 31st year of doing budgets for Human Services. They have always been extremely complicated, and I know that when people look at this budget, they go, what is going on here? How complicated can this possibly be? And I can tell you that it is probably the most complicated budget process of any department. We have about a quarter of the county budget overall. We employ 30% of all county employees. We have 72,000, as of last year, we opened 72,000 cases for Winnebago County residents on about 100 different service areas. And before my budget starts on page 316, I want to start by just trying to explain for new members and for those that still don't understand Human Services, what is it? What does it comprise? Why do we do it? Why is it here? And it is a mandated service area that the state of Wisconsin decided it wanted 50 plus years ago. It is a merger of smaller departments over the course of that 50 years in something that we now call the Human Services Department. And most of what we do is mandated, which means that we have to provide the service under contract with the state of Wisconsin. If we don't, then we are subject to all revenue loss of funding streams that are probably about 50 to 100 different funding streams for us. And we'll get into that as we talk about it. But the merger of services, so just so you understand that in previous years, the very earliest service in the area of human services was social services. And social services were basically two primary areas. One area was to protect children who may be abused or neglected, and to provide services to those families to get those families the help they need. And the other area was economic and social support. So a long time ago, there were services to provide some economic help for families that were unable to provide for their families. That has subsequently gone away. And Medicaid, applying for Medicaid, Badger Care we call it in Wisconsin, applying for food share, which we used to refer to as food stamps, and applying for child care for families who have limited incomes are areas that we are mandated to provide. So that was a separate department, which we call economic support, separate department, which we called, child welfare. Those two departments were social services department. Then in the 70s along came the deinstitutionalization of people in mental hospitals because of the advent of medications. And so we added a new department called the Department of Community Programs. And that program was designed and mandated by the state that we are to provide services for people who are mentally ill, drug dependent, or developmentally or intellectually disabled. And we are the payer of last resort for services that they can't find in the community. That's called the Department of Community Programs. Then there was Department of Elderly Services in this county. And elderly services helped people navigate the Social Security system, the Medicare system, apply for Social Security disability, etc. That was a separate department. So in 1999, and some of you may have been around that long, basically merged those three departments into the Department of Human Services. Because it was felt that it was going to be more integrated, that there could be more cost sharing, there could be more administrative kind of combinations of things, so support could be spread out across those different areas. And because the work really evolved around the same families. So that was the idea of doing that, which I think is a fantastic idea. The previous county I came from, that was also what we did as well. In the early 2000s, also the juvenile intake services that were under the courts were transferred to the Department of Human Services. So we have all the juvenile intake services for kids that might commit some crimes, and we take care of all of that area. And then about 2005, the courts and the DA's office asked the Human Services Department to come up with programs that would divert people from having to go to jail if they had a mental health issue or substance abuse. And that program was referred to as Safe Streets Drug Court. And from there, we have added a number of different diversion programs to try to keep folks that have mental illness or drug dependence out of jail. We also provide the services. We don't just case manage services. We actually provide assessment and treatment in the area of mental health and substance abuse. We do not duplicate with other people in the community because they serve their populations of folks, and we pretty much are left with people who don't have any place to go or any ability to pay for those services. We do that. We don't do it out of the kindness of our heart. We do it because we get funding to do those things from the Medicaid system. And our payer sources range from 100% reimbursement to 50% reimbursement. I know some questions earlier were what do we do with grants? And I will show you that basically we don't have grants typically in human services. We have intergovernmental transfers, which means the feds provide money directly to the state then provides that money to the county. There are times where the state will say, if you do this extra thing, we will pay you extra to do that. But we're very careful not to add positions when we know the funding is going to go away, because that creates a need that we can't sustain. And so we have decided as a Human Services Department to not go after short-term grants. And that may be satisfying for some folks and not so satisfying for others, but we really want to be careful. We're very cautious. I can tell you that every year that I've been a director, the budget objective has been pretty much the same, which is do the same thing you did this year, next year, maybe add a few things, and try to do it for the same amount of levy. So my marching orders have been the same for 31 years. And so when we created this budget, we sat down to create this budget, which, by the way, was created by the Human Services Board, because in statute, the Human Services Board creates the budget in Human Services to give to the county exec, that then the county exec adds to his budget and then presents to you. So that is in statute. That will continue no matter what changes occur down the road. With that, the only major change, other than we're not trying to add additional levy to your budget, we're asking for levy for one replacement van because we have 10 minivans that we use to transport clients, and any van that's older than 10 years or has more than 150,000 miles, we would like to replace that van because they become a maintenance issue for us. So we put, I believe it was around $34,999 in the budget for that. And then we are asking for about 28 FTE positions, and I will explain why we're asking for those as we get to it, but without additional levy. And we thought that one of them might actually have to have $75,000 worth of levy attached to it. And as of my colleagues reported last evening, with the error in the workman's comp, we think we have that portion covered as well. So I just wanted to give you a big overview of Human Services. It's a complex organization. I don't blame you if you don't know what question you want to ask. And if you ask us what's in a particular line, it's probably going to be a number of things. So I'm going to turn to Janet Roloff, who's our financial manager behind me, and help me to explain to you what's in that line. There are literally dozens of pages, and Janet and her team and my managers and myself, we worked together starting in March to try to figure out where we're going to go with our budget. We did incorporate all of the costs for the salary and fringes into our budget, and the goal is to be able to sustain this long term, not just this year, but every year following. And that's why, again, we try to follow the sources of money that don't change year to year. The other thing I can tell you is we're very active at the state. We're trying to add more revenues through the state budget process, through bills that are being actually circulated right now that might actually provide more funding for the stuff that we do ongoing. And we have a couple of bills now in the legislature that I'm happy to say are looking pretty positive, and we might actually get some additional revenue, which always means that if we don't have to spend it in a given year, we are able to save that tax levy, and then it comes back to the general fund as a surplus. And I know in years past I've been criticized for having too much surplus, but I will tell you that some of the stuff that we bill millions of dollars through Medicaid and other formulas, and sometimes we get additional dollars based on our actual cost versus what we bill, and sometimes that money takes 2 years to settle and then come back to us. And it usually comes back to us in November, which it will this year, and it basically will increase our surplus by likely, I will say, in any given year, an average of $1 million that we can't spend because it's in November and it's not part of our regular budget, so it comes back as a surplus. So I know I've been criticized in previous years for why is the surplus so large, and part of it is that if we don't spend it, it's a surplus. If we get further dollars from the feds and the state, it's a surplus. We can choose to basically not agree to accept it, but then it doesn't come back to us to pay for things that should be paid for, and then to free up the levy to go back to the general fund so that you can use it for what you want to use it for. So anyway, with that, page 316 and following, you see descriptions of what the department is, what our programs are, and the list of the number of positions. So why are we asking for so many positions? Well, there's two reasons. The state of Wisconsin decided that a newer program called Children's Long-Term Support Services, Children's Long-Term Support, has to be fully funded, and it has to have no wait list. And every county in the state has seen huge numbers of referrals in this area. These are families that have children with long-term developmental, intellectual, autism, and other types of needs. And these...
Hi, I'm calling to speak with someone about what your rates for services are going to be for next year.
Okay. Didn't think that was a question.
Great, thank you.
So that area has been mandated to have no wait list, and it is 100% funded. So in order for us to do that service, we either have to contract for it or we have to do it ourselves. We have been unsuccessful in being able to find a contractor that is able to help us to do that. And so we need to do it ourselves. I personally think that doing it ourselves will yield a better product, and we will have better control over our costs going forward. So that's about half the positions. The other half is an area called Comprehensive Community Services for Children and Families, and that's for kids that have severe mental disabilities. And we provide a lot of therapy, and we provide medication support, other things for the family case management. It's a very intensive program, involves many hours a week, crisis services, and again, that's an area that's covered 100%. And we have identified about 60 families that we are working with right now that are on a wait list for that type of service, and we can't have that wait list. So we need to provide, thank you, I was getting a little dry. So we need to provide that service, and we don't really have a choice about it. And so my goal was to try to get it in our budget so that it doesn't cost all of us at the county with the levy to get that done. So I'm happy to say that we're successful in being able to do that, and I believe that it is sustainable long term. So it's a lot of bodies, but when you think about the number of families, the intensity of number of hours, we need that many bodies to be able to perform those services. So that's essentially it. You can ask me any and all questions about any budget item or questions about the positions. I'm more than willing to answer them.
Supervisor Defferding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question in regards to just, looking at the future. Of course, priority-based budgeting is kind of like the big hot topic, this year, and will certainly be for next year too. So, we're looking to be, obviously we want to be as efficient as we can with our tax dollars. And I know that you came from a county that had health merge with Human Services. Could you talk to me a little bit more about that, your experience there, and which county it was?
Sure. I was previously 20 years in Marinette County, and Marinette County combined public health with Human Services back in about 1994, I believe. And at that time, Marinette County is not the only county. I forget how many counties there are that are now Health and Human Services, 20-some, I believe.
I think 28. Yeah.
28. And actually the state encourages Human Services Department to form as many mergers as possible because we all do work with the same families. And so it's easier for us to coordinate that. I think the advantages that I saw were that we were able to share administrative staff. We were able to do joint budgeting. We were able to think about a strategy that's, let's say, take the area of mental health and substance abuse. Public health focuses on the prevention side and developing the community response, and Human Services delivers the services for mental health and substance abuse, along with other community providers. So it was a nice way for us to always be together, to think about how can we do this together. Maybe we don't need to have more than one person on a particular topic. Maybe we can kind of share it back and forth depending on if it's more prevention or if it's more direct intervention. We can figure out, which is the better use of time. The question of downside, I remember in Marinette, was that the Public Health Department felt that if it was merged, that it would no longer have visibility, that it would no longer be important because it would be a smaller department within a department, so to speak. But that never happened. And I can tell you that I have 5 divisions in my department. My largest division is well over 100 people, that's behavioral health, and my smallest division is, my smallest one I believe is long-term support, might be admin, but admin, and none of those departments lose their importance. They all sit with me at a table, we all share what our needs are, and everybody gets equal time, and when we come to budget, we really try to be careful to not think about one division over another division. We try to spread it out. So in my experience in Marinette, long story short, it was a positive one. I remember the public health director came to me and said that I was very leery about it, but in the end, it worked out actually better, because sometimes we could help them with the budget when they were short, because the rest of the divisions may be a little bit more flush, and we could kind of balance things out. When you have separate departments, then you have to kind of go it alone.
Thank you so much for that. That is really, really educational, and certainly plants a seed in my head just going forward. You know what to do with Winnebago County. The idea of just kind of breaking down silos, but also not just that, but helping each other out too towards a common goal. One other question is AdvoCap. That follows. That's under your purview, correct?
AdvoCap funding is some funding that we provide to AdvoCap. Yes.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Supervisor Gabbard.
Two quick, one comment, one question. Good luck getting a van for $35,000.
Yeah.
I don't think that's you're gonna buy a new van for 35?
Well, at the time we were looking at quotes for minivans, that was enough, but, you know, we start this budget in like March and
Yeah.
April. So, Janet, do you have any thoughts on, is that going to be enough?
Double it.
That was the number that we got from purchasing. So at the
Okay.
time, but I quite agree that maybe
Because
35.9 isn't going to work.
Parkview's buying a van with a donation that they got from a resident for 60+ thousand.
Yeah.
So, just saying, I think that's low. And be aware of that, and I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
Shelter care.
Sure.
What is the current turnover time? And by that, I mean if a child comes in there, I think I asked you this once before.
Sure.
Are we at 30 days in, 60 days in? And the caveat side of that is if their court demands that they go there, or whatever happens, what are you seeing for how long that child is in that shelter?
Sure. So those of you who don't know, we purchased a shelter care building. Shelter care is for child welfare. It's for kids who are awaiting a court or a placement elsewhere, or they are there for a few days because things have become chaotic at home and we need to have like a little time out and help with the families kind of reorganize, get back together. It's meant to be short term. It is meant to be only 30 days. It can go longer than that, but only with a court directive to do that. We took it over from a provider who was unable to sustain having the right staff for us. So we bought the building with your approval, and we added our staff, and it can serve up to 16 children, although we are currently using it for 8. We do offer it to other counties in case we don't fill up all the other beds. But it has been working out fantastic for us. I will say that we have been challenged also to try to keep staff there, and you also allowed us to make some adjustments in differential pay because it's a 24/7 operation. And the only major area that we have difficulty holding on to are our overnight staff. As you can imagine, and I'm not great overnight either, I never did well on third shift, but God bless people who can work third shift, because we do need them, and it's our challenge. It's our one challenge that we can't really keep enough people on third shift. And we do have a couple of ads, at least one ad in the budget to kind of help us beef that up a little bit so that we have enough staff at the shelter care.
So 30 days is your average that you would have?
Yeah, Yes.
Some stay 60.
I'm sorry?
Some stay 60 days?
Yeah, some could stay longer, but it has to be with a court approval.
And some stay and then could repeat, come back.
Oh,
right?
yes, you could
It's a
repeat as many
revolving-
times in shelter care as
Okay.
needed. It's one of many different arrangements for kids that we have in care.
And it's ages 10 through 17?
That sounds right, but I would say most of our kids are probably right around 14 to 16.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Supervisor Gustafson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Topol, for being here today.
Sure.
First, Supervisor Defferding kind of hit on the head what my first question was going to be, and I hope that we'll see you lead the charge here as we go forward with priority-based budgeting with this merger. I think it's going to be beneficial. I've worked in Outagamie County as well, so I see how they have operated it, and it's been quite efficient. So my other quick question here was the bad debts expense, the 53561. Obviously, the percentage is going to be a huge sticker shock of almost 30,000% increase. Can you just allude a little bit more to what that $75,000 is going to help cover?
I'm going to turn to Janet for a minute to get the explanation for it. It's complicated, but the answer, I think the short answer is the auditors wanted us to account for that differently. Janet's going to hate my summation of it, but the auditors wanted to account for it differently. It's not really a big change in what we have done. We do have to write off bad debt after a certain number of years of trying, and we do send a lot of things to collections and what we're able to do. But then after a certain period of time, we have to write it off. So, and the auditors wanted to do something different, and I don't want to try to explain it, other than if you want Janet to get into the details, she's right here. Would you like that?
If she'd like to.
More detail?
Just, I think a little bit more would be good.
So if you look at the revenue line for client cost fees, you'll see that that's increased by a similar amount. What they're doing now is booking the revenue as it is charged. And we know from history that there's a certain amount of bad debt write-off associated with that. So it's really kind of offset by that additional revenue. So it's really just an accounting adjustment that they wanted us to make for this year.
So that's typically what we're seeing
Correct.
year over year of what the expense would be.
Correct, and it's just how they're accounting for that is a little different this year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Dr. Topol. I just had two questions quickly. When you took on childcare in-house in Oshkosh and Neenah, you're taking on, you said about half the employees that you're requesting here are going to be for those facilities, is that correct?
No, the Neenah, you're talking about the Neenah building, the...
Well, you had those, you had contractual services, right? Someone else took care of that.
Yes, we do still have a contract with Family Services, who runs the other. So he is referring to a group home in Neenah, which is different than our shelter care in Oshkosh that we purchased. We purchased, with your support again, a building in Neenah, which is a group home for boys.
That's
and
different.
the group home is a longer stay, typically 6 months to sometimes a couple of years. And kind of, if you think of it as maybe like a halfway house kind of format. And that is, we don't have our own county employees running that facility. That's run with a contract with Family Services. So I'm hoping I'm answering your question.
But in Oshkosh, we are taking that over then?
We do have our own county staff running the shelter care in Oshkosh.
Are any of the positions here for that you list?
Yes.
How many of them roughly? I'm just curious.
Well,
of the total.
Give me a second.
Yep.
I have all of the detail here. So we're in this particular group, youth shelter care specialist, which is again the Oshkosh Shelter Care. It says addition of 2 overnight staff to safely provide care and supervision for youth at the shelter, care facility, 1 full-time and 1 part-time. So it's 2 positions, but it's a position and a half in this grouping.
Okay. Is there any net increase to the levy by taking that on here? Are we saving money by not having outside contractual services?
Oh,
for that
absolutely.
facility?
Yes,
How much
absolutely.
savings do we have, do you think? roughly?
That's a good question.
Just roughly.
Yeah, I mean, if you replace contracted services with in-house staff,
Yeah.
there's always a trade-off, because sometimes you can get a contracted staff for less because they pay perhaps less in wages or benefits. Ours might be slightly higher, but if we have better retention, if we have better service outlay, we're actually saving money in the long run, because we would be paying contractors more over time. And they basically just, I think, I would just gonna guess,
Yep.
at least 100,000.
100,000 in savings. by
At
taking
least,
it
at
out.
least, yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And, so there wouldn't be any impact on the levy by taking this over then, really, right?
No, none of these positions come
Yeah.
with increased levy.
Okay. And then you mentioned that beds are still available to be leased out to other counties?
Yes, yes.
In-
If we
in the
aren't using
Oshkosh
them, we are letting our surrounding counties know that
Okay.
we have space.
Do we have any estimated revenue, or how much revenue have we received from that yet? Anything?
We charge them a daily rate, and I'd have to look it up and get back to you on the daily rate that we charge them.
Do you know annually how much we've received to this point, since we took them over? No.
We probably have to wait till the end of the year and then go back and give you we could give you the whole accounting then.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor Sestero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Dr. Topol.
Yeah, there you are.
I was looking through the budget. I'm not seeing ADRC, which is fine. But I guess my question, first of all, is I've done a lot of volunteer disability cases, well, maybe less than 10. And I have not been aware of anybody in the county that you could just turn it, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I have never found somebody that is marginalized and is not able to get services, whatever, not able to stick through things, maybe doesn't have a strong family, that there would be any social services available to them to see a disability case to the end. We're talking the 2 appeals and then the final appearance before an administrative law judge. I mean, do you have anybody that you know of that would take that burden off of me just as a resident?
I can find out. I can find out and I can get back to you. I know that we have helped many people over the course of many years to apply for disability and to go through all of those appeals and all of that process. And I don't know who exactly does that now, so I can find out for you.
Yeah, I've dug, I've done a lot of digging over the years and just asking, because I would rather not have to be, in a 3-year, 2-year process with it's very, but I haven't been able to find anybody. That's why I made comments about that government can't always do everything for you. So,
But we can put you, I'll get back to you. We can put you in touch with the people that we know that help people go through the process of applying for disability and going through appeals.
and hand holding and, okay,
Yeah.
all right. That's all, thank you.
Sure.
Supervisor Challenger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, since 2019, your levy, the levy applied from your department has decreased by $21,000, and you've added 56 full-time and 2 part-time positions. Since 2013, your levy has increased by $421,000, pretty negligible, probably less than the wage increases, while adding 72 full-time positions and 6 part-time positions, or at least compared to this year's budget book. I want to ask if a lot of those position additions are similar to what we're seeing this year, where there were contracted services that we were paying someone else to do, and over the last 10 years or whatever have been brought in-house, or if it's just program expansion through those funding sources, intergovernmental funding sources you spoke about in your address.
I would say up until the last 5 years, it was mandated expansion of programs that the funding sources were coming through and we were needing to respond to that. The last 5 years, we have seen, especially during the pandemic, we've lost a lot of our private vendors, frankly, because they can't sustain and find the staff that they need for the price that they were able to pay for them, and so they've gone out of business. And I think that's unfortunate, and but somebody has to do the service, then we have to pick it up and do it. So I would say last 5 years it's more contractors that have not been able to provide the service, so we needed to make a decision about, taking it over ourselves.
And when we do that, is it generally more cost effective for us?
As a conservative, I will tell you, I hope it's break even. That's my honest answer. If we can actually do better than that and save money, that's where I want to go. That's, and I've been managing these programs for, 31 years now. And I always know the same thing you're thinking right now, which is how do we add these staff without it costing us more? And I always call it pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Every year is like, how do I do that? And every year, miraculously, we figure out ways to maximize funding and shift our funding streams around to leverage everything we possibly can. And then I ask the final question, did we make it? Did we pay for this position? Because if we didn't, I don't want to bring it to the budget process because I'm sensitive to not wanting to add to the tax levy burden of this county, which is my home.
Okay, and thank you. And then looking forward, are you aware or would you forecast that last 5-year trend of contractors or vendors closing down or not working with us for one reason or another to be specifically on mandated programs, to be a trend that the board can and should continue to expect when thinking about the long-term budgeting?
Unfortunately, I think that the trend is going to be for more of our contractors to not be able to step up to the plate and deliver. And I think I heard that in your deliberations the last 2 nights about projects that are delayed and things that aren't getting done. And I worry about that. And in my field, I can't not deliver a service today. We have to figure out a way to deliver it today. I can't say, wait. So that's the challenge for us, is to be constantly looking for more payer sources, looking for more ways to fund this stuff because the expenses go up every year.
Thank you. And then lastly, you have a large department with lots of employees. Can you characterize the employment conditions for your team, or I should say staffing numbers? Have you been able to see more people hired, onboarded, and brought in over this last year?
We're always about 5% of our staff that we're looking for at any one time. It was worse during the pandemic. It was as high as 10 to 15% during the worst part of the pandemic, but we're down to about 5%, which we can manage with that. When we don't have enough staff, the staff that we have to do more.
Thank you.
Yep.
Supervisor Haran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. I've just got a quick question, and that is, how difficult do you think it is going to be to staff those additional positions you're asking for?
Well, there's good news on that front. About a third of the positions that we are asking for actually currently exist. They're working for us now, but they're not under permanent status. So those people are already here. Another third are with a vendor organization. A good chunk of them may, about 50% or more may actually come over to the positions to be filled. So I think we're in a good place to at least have half or more of them filled close to January 1st, which would be fantastic. The other half we're going to have to recruit for. Generally speaking, it takes 3 months plus or minus to hire new people. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Topol. I see no other lights and no one
Okay.
on Zoom, so
Thank
thank you. Do we want to start Parkview right away, or you want to take a few-minute break? Okay, we'll take a little break, and then we'll do Parkview right after that.
Recording stopped.
The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Winnebago County Board is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV
Recording in
programming,
progress.
visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org.
Next up will be Parkview Health, and then we'll go back to highways. So Parkview Health will be next. I just know Doug is all that I know.
Still worried, huh?
Well, Lindsay.
Yeah, you just stay back there. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Lindsay Gaska, the administrator at Parkview Health Center. We are the Winnebago County Nursing Home. We do short-term and rehab, long-term care, dementia care, memory care, psychiatric care out on Butler Avenue. We currently have a census average is about 97. Our total beds that we have available that are licensed is 168. We have 3 neighborhoods that are currently closed due to staffing. We are hopeful that next year we will be opening one of those neighborhoods up. I'm hoping we can open 2, but kind of depends on the workforce, as I'm sure that's kind of a trend during these budget hearings that you're hearing about right now. Our current wait list for admissions for those waiting to come into Parkview is currently 32 residents. Last year, January, we opened up a CNA training program at the training center that we had opened. We have trained 30 brand new CNAs through that program year to date since January. We have had 80% of those, so 24 of those people have stayed at Parkview. 15 or 5 staff members were there less than 6 months. They went through the program and realized that healthcare just is not for them. So they parted ways with us, but we have able to be able to hold on to 80% of those brand new CNAs, which is great for Winnebago County. Our average total staff turnover year to date for 2023 is 3%. So some things that we're working on as far as staffing, because it is a big concern at Parkview. We're looking at, with HR this year, we looked at our onboarding process and try to expedite how we do our onboarding. It was taking 3 to maybe 4 weeks sometimes to do onboarding because they needed to be cleared by occupational health.
through a doctor, so it would take a while to get in for their TB screen, their drug screen, their physicals, and then on top, then having to go down to HR to do their onboard paperwork. We have done a waiver with the state of Wisconsin, so now the TB, the drug screen, physical is all done on-site at Parkview, which cuts down the time and money immediately for what we're spending or what we were paying to occupational health to provide that service for us. So we've brought that in-house. We've also brought in a majority of the onboarding paperwork in-house as well too, as well as reference checks. We'll do our own reference checks in-house as well too. So that's really expedited the process to get people in. So average is about 2 weeks to get somebody in. So we've cut that in half over the last year with the help of HR. So I don't know if there's any specific questions that anybody has.
Supervisor Estera.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, that's right.
So the 80% CNAs and these different numbers are good. How do you think PTO is going to help in?
I think PTO will help. I think it's going to be great for the short-term people coming in. They're going to be getting more vacation time than they were previously. So I think that will help with recruitment and retention as well too. I think the wage study as well, that has really helped with retention.
Okay, great. And the county, when I used to place people from a hospital with discharge planning, the county nursing home in Cedar Rapids area, that was the one that I could use. I mean, do you have to generally admit the difficult to place situations as a county nursing home? Just curious.
Not necessarily. It all depends on the case. If they are at risk for endangering others, we typically do not take those. We don't have those type of capabilities. And we need to look out for the residents that currently are in-house and for their best safety.
So where do they go then?
Sometimes they might go to like Clearwater, Juneau. They have mental health, behavioral, TBI services there as well. Sometimes they'll have them in the hospital a little longer just to make sure that their meds are adjusted. Sometimes they're very quick to discharge patients from the hospital before they're stable on their medication. So sometimes they'll do that.
Is it safe to say that Parkview is kind of a safety net to all of the for-profit?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you so much,
Sure.
appreciate it.
Sure, you're welcome.
Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Lindsay. I wanted to highlight the work that this board has done. The Parkview Health Center is doing $2.3 million better than it did 2 years ago. Can you talk a little bit about the, obviously there's still some staffing shortages, and you just talked about the PTO, but no doubt that the work that this board did has helped Parkview Health Center immensely.
Yes, absolutely, with the staffing. We've done some incentive programs here passed by this board that's really helped with staffing, covering those shifts, making sure that the residents are getting the care that they need and deserve. Some of the revenue, too, has come from the state of Wisconsin. They increased our Medicaid reimbursement by 34% this year. And then our supplemental payment money that's also paid with excess overflow from the state, we received an extra $1.3 million from that.
Is Parkview still rated one of the best health care facilities, long-term care facilities in the state?
In 2022 it was.
Okay.
I don't know for 2023 yet.
Okay, wonderful. want to make a couple comments. Talking to constituents and residents throughout the county, most folks do not know that, but when they're told that, they're very proud of that. And I just want to thank the previous, I'm going to get off topic a little bit, supervisors that have invested in Parkview Health Center. That's something that we should all be proud of in this county, taking care of our elderly population, which includes veterans as well. And so just want to make that point to folks to know that, some folks might not approve of what we're doing, but I think everybody should be proud of the work that's done at Parkview Health Center, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lindsay, when you're interviewing a registered nurse, for instance, and you want to hire him or her, what are you able to offer as for wages?
Depends on experience. In human resources, we go based on experience. The highest that we can go up to, I think Mark's not in here, I think for registered nurses is $37.78.
Okay, and then how does that compare? How are you competing with other nursing homes, either in the area, in the county, or surrounding counties?
It depends, because our competition necessarily isn't other long-term nursing homes. It's the hospital, it's clinics, anybody that has a registered nurse. We have hired a few nurses with this wage. We've also had a few nurses that have declined the position because they made more money elsewhere.
Okay, that was really what I was wondering, if other places are paying better.
Yes, and those two are from a local nursing home just down the street.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Supervisor Bender.
I was looking for the capital improvement projects, and I don't see your parking lot in there. I thought it was supposed to be replaced in 22, because your parking lot's in pretty poor shape.
Oh.
And I don't see it listed in 24. What is the plan to make the upgrades to that parking lot?
Oh, I wasn't aware of any. I'm not aware of any upgrades to our parking lot.
Yeah, when the Parks Department got ours, we actually bumped you back a year, but I don't see it ever coming back in the capital improvement projects. It's something that you'll have to address eventually.
Oh.
The parking lot's in poor shape, and it needs to be rebuilt.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know anything about a parking lot project. I was talking with Doug that I think it needs to be re-blacktopped.
That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it needs to be re-blacktopped, but I was.
It was supposed to be done in 2022. It got pushed back because they did the parking lots in County Park.
Okay.
But I've never seen it come back since then. So it's something that you as a administrator need to address.
Yeah.
When you are going to update that and re-blacktop it, because it's not safe for people to be walking with potholes and cars driving in there. We deal with elderly people that walk by themselves, and it's real easy to stumble when you have a parking lot that's full of potholes.
We don't have any potholes in our parking lot.
Well, when I drove through, you had some, unless you patched them.
I don't know. We had a lip in the front of the building, but Highway came out and fixed that for us, which they did a great job at. But otherwise, I haven't had any other concerns.
Well, I think maybe look at your parking lot.
I'll take a look at it,
It
though,
was
when we get
addressed to
back.
be repaved,
Okay,
blacktopped in 22.
Okay.
And I'm sure it didn't get any better in the last 2 years.
Supervisor Challenger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you have $8.6 million as transfer out. That's the ARPA money, right?
correct, yes.
And do you have an updated projection then, if we take that ARPA money out, of what your net levy and fund balance application is on track for this year?
Oh, for 2022?
For 2023, our
20
current year, yeah.
Sorry, we're in 23. Well, for our levy this year, then, it would be $752,612 is what we have for the end of September. If you would take the tax levy out between if you took the ARPA funds out, the tax levy out, and just broke it down to our revenue and our operations, this year we're ahead by $214,000.
Perfect,
year to
thank
date.
you. That's fantastic. That's a big difference from where we've been, and just that ARPA transfer sort of masks what effectiveness has really gone on there, to go from $1 million in the hole projected to or not quite $1 million, I guess, but almost $2 million of fund balance applied, and $1 million of levy to a significantly less amount. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I don't see any other lights, so I thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Now we'll have the highway come back up. There was some questions in that wasn't answered.
Hello. I reached out to yesterday via email. I think I got an idea where your question was with this. So that 55004, that other repair, maintenance, and streets, that fund, there's a lot that goes into that fund specifically. Some of the things that go in there associated to our state lift bridges, any of the maintenance on those bridges that are contracted will go added to that. There's cameras, electricians, there's hydraulic services that go to that, electricians. Also through that, we contract with Fond du Lac County to do all our center lining on our roads. So that would get charged to that. Fond du Lac County, Calumet County, Wapaka County, when we need extra trucks, we will hire them to haul for us. So that gets charged to that account. Also, when we do on our projects, pulverizing roads, our milling, when we contract those out, that goes to that. So there's a lot that goes in that. And one other thing too is that when we budget for that, there's a lot of things that happen that we don't foresee. Just a couple instances, I don't know if anybody's traveled 41 northbound by Snell Road. There's a concrete barrier wall that's pushed over. A semi hit that. That is one that we don't do that type of work, but we have to contract that out. They're going to be starting here another, I think this week or next. It's a huge, huge hit for us. We can't project that. So what we tend to look at is over a 5-year span, what accidents happen. These are some of the things that we don't forecast those. Anybody that lives up in Neenah by Breezewood, 41 southbound, you saw some barrier wall kind of by the Dairy Queen that was knocked down by a driver. That was back COVID time. We couldn't get materials. We just put it out to a subcontractor out of Neenah to do that. It just got fixed a few months ago. We're just seeing that come through now. So those are all kind of things that that happen with this. And other things too is like on our, I'll just say like our County Road F project this year. Under that road is concrete. So when we do a mill, we mill off, but that concrete's still under there. Those slabs may tilt, but when we get that asphalt over there, we will see those slabs move. And if that's the time, we have to go in and pull those out. This year we got very lucky. We didn't have to touch anything. But we do put that in there to cover that just in case those happen. So those are kind of some of those things when we get into that, we budget in, but if we have a good year, we don't see those. That answer that for you? Okay.
Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we not reimbursed by insurance for that, like?
So yes. So what happens is those accidents, when they happen, it's like guard belting, say a car fire, anything that damaged the road like that, yellow claim is made out by the Sheriff's Department. Then we start a process with the DOT. So everything we do, every time we go out there, it's itemized list. The time, material, everything gets added on that. and then that gets all billed to the DOT. And then they file the claims to go after the insurance or the parties with that. So yeah, it all does. So that wall, that will be all charged back to the accident. So that,
Supervisor Ellenberger.
Thank you. Just to clarify that, so when it gets charged back, we just have to upfront the cost, is what you're saying? That's
Yeah.
it? Okay,
Yeah.
that makes
So we
sense.
contract with the DOT for those
Right.
services. Sometimes they're too
It
much
takes a
for
while.
us.
Right, and it takes a while, so you have to contract that out, they replace it, and then you go to the insurance, and then it could
Yes.
take another year. Gotcha. Okay,
Yep.
thank you for clarifying that.
Supervisor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned lift bridges.
Yep.
Is Winnebago County still inspecting and performing maintenance on lift bridges?
So we do inspection on our local county bridges and for our townships and cities. We do a majority of those. The state structures are inspected by the state.
So on lift bridges in Winnebago County, then? Okay, thank you.
This really has nothing to do with budgeting, Bob, but I would like to have you tell them what you and your crew encountered this year out on one of the roads while you're out there, and that you had to have the sheriff's department and everything out there, so they realize what's going on at times.
So this year, we were working out on County Road F, just outside of Omro. The crews ran into, the entire time out there, they ran into some disgruntled property owners. Our crews, they do a good job. They understand our customers, everybody that's out there. Our employees don't get in arguments. They know how to diffuse those situations when they come up, but this was one of those situations. Nothing could get taken care of out there. I got a call that the gentleman was very upset and was on the side of our foreman's truck. The foreman called me and he says, "Hey, this isn't good. This guy, I can't do anything to make him happy. We got to do something here." And I just told him, I said, "Call the sheriff's department and leave." The sheriff's department did go out there. Apparently, this gentleman had a firearm, and I think there was a little bit of standoff there for hour and a half or hour and 45 minutes. By the time I got out there, we got our crews out. I sent them out of the area and let the sheriff's department take care of that. But those are things that, that's what's reality, what's happening out there with our crews. We don't ever, back in the Act 10 era, I mean, we had people pulling over our plow trucks to pull our drivers out of the trucks. And I thought, this is going to go away, but this is something that's happened. It's real. This is what's really happening out there. And we're seeing more of this. And luckily, our crews got out of there. But that's kind of reality where we're at these days. So our crews, it's, you think, hey, guys are just out there doing their job, and that this is what they're confronted with, situations like this. So luckily, we got our crews out of there. But it's, it's what happened out there. So, I mean, glad our crews got out of there safe. And, we try to, it's simple, ask a question from a resident, and our guys should be able to answer that. I don't know if that's something we want to do anymore. I don't feel my crews, it's not safe to even answer a question, because if it starts to get to this point, you got to walk away and leave it at that. So,
Thank you, and thanks for coming back today.
All right. Thank you.
UWO Fox Cities Campus.
Good morning, everyone. For those who do not know me, I am Joanne Reif. I am the Chief Facilities Officer for UW Oshkosh's 3 campuses. And today I have with me Kurt Leibold, who is our Vice Chancellor of University Affairs, who is stepping in for Martin Rudd as Martin has passed away. So just wanted to give you that information. I will be talking about the operating budget overall, and to let you know that the operating budget for UWO Fox Cities is a budget where the revenue that you say in there comes from Outagamie County. The cost for the operations to the counties is split between the two counties. Staffing for any of the work that happens there, as well as fixtures, furniture, and equipment, are handled and budgeted by the UW Oshkosh campus as part of the state. So in addition to that, the changes in the budget over the last couple of years has been minor changes in the amount of money that has come in from the work that Mike Elder did on the renegotiation of the cell tower account that is on the property. So that has been an increase. You'll see that in the revenue. The expenditure that you see for professional services in the budget overall is a request to then fund that facility condition assessment as the rest of the county buildings are being reviewed for that condition assessment. We are looking to do the Fox Cities campus as one of those. So other than that, I am open to questions.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to start with my condolences for Mr. Rudd. He was great to work with, and he will be sorely missed. Quick question for you, and I guess it just kind of is the nature of what's going on right now with the UW system and the announcements about the closures of the Washington, Richland Center, and Fond du Lac County campuses. My question for you, and I know this is a little bit more of a pointed question, but long-term viability is something that I'm concerned about. And given what's been going on with the UW system recently, I just wanted your take on that and what you see happening in the next 5 years.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. I wish I could answer that question. I wish I could tell you and look in my crystal ball and tell you exactly how things are going to play out. One thing we know for sure consistently is our enrollment has declined, especially around our access campuses and branch campuses, our two-year colleges, and for most of the comprehensives as well over the last 5 years. They have stabled and leveled off this year, so that is good news. But we're right now responding to that changing demographic of student and their ability to choose to do other things other than higher education. So we're seeing that at UWO. I'm sure you've heard of what's going on there as well. So right now we're invested in the Fox campus, and we're doing what we can to keep it viable.
Is there any sort of partnership you could have in the future with some of the tech colleges in the area, namely Fox Valley Tech? I understand that may require some edits on the state level, but is that something you're looking into by chance, or is that more of a future discussion?
No, those partnerships are already happening, and we're looking, and specifically we were looking at Fond du Lac to utilize that space for other things other than just instruction out there. There are some ongoing talks to expand some programs out there as well. So we're looking at that on the Fox campus also.
Okay, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Gabbert.
Supervisor Flom took the wind out of my sails, so I have nothing.
Supervisor Ernst, did you shut yours off? Okay. Is there anyone on Zoom? That's all the questions they have for you today, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
University of Wisconsin Extension.
All right, good morning. Please bear with me, I'm getting through a little bit of a cold. All right, the UW Extension budget begins on page 355. UW Extension is a partnership between Winnebago County and the UW-Madison Division of Extension. We've had a partnership together for over 100 years, and it's been a very successful partnership, and we hope to continue providing direct and indirect research-based education to residents of the community, and also building capacity within our communities by partnering with community organizations and a number of our county departments to ensure access to that research-based education. So a couple of the things that, looking at some significant changes on page 357, we have an increase in our program fees, so our revenue. We have a full team as of July of 2023. We have a full team of educators as slated, or that was a part of the proposed budget or approved budget for 2023. So with that comes an opportunity for there to be additional income based on some of the revenue-based programming. We don't have a lot of revenue-based programming, but we do have programming such as 4-H camps, our horticulture education programs, and other type events that do generate some revenue. The labor increase was based on the wage adjustments that were part of the countywide wage study. The registration tuition other is an increase of $13,000. That is a direct in and an out. That is our 4-H program and the associated programs. So for example, 4-H camp, and there's a series of 4-H camps. There's both our residential camp at Upham Woods and Wisconsin Dells, plus our other, we have some day camps and other pieces. Those registration fees come in through and are considered revenue, and then they are expended for those programs. So for example, busing, the other contracted services, the rental fees, program supplies, all of those types of things for those youth to be able to participate in. Other contracted services, you will see that there is a decrease of $46,573 in our contracted services fee. This was outlined in generality in the opening paragraph, the introduction. This is the contracted service fee in which it's part of the partnership that has been in place for over 100 years, in that there are co-funded positions in which the county pays a portion of those salaries, and the state pays a portion or co-funds, so it's a partnership. In the 2023 adopted budget included the full salary and fringes for a health and well-being educator. In July of 2023, after about 3 years of working with my colleagues at administrative leadership at UW-Madison Division of Extension, was able to have that position be a co-funded position, which means instead of the county paying the full salary and fringes, as was approved, as we'll finish out this year, but beginning January 1, that position will be co-funded. The flat fee for the co-funded positions, and I need to look that up, it's $46,200 and some odd dollars. $46,247 is the flat fee. And that position has been shifted, which would be the savings or the decrease in that area. A couple of other small changes are, as of July 1st, our regional agriculture educators, of which we have a crops and soils educator, which is at 0.5 and is shared with Outagamie County, and a regional dairy educator that is a full-time extension employee with 25% of their responsibility here in Winnebago County. Their mileage and travel expenses were taken over by the state. As the regional, through the regional structure, it was a move towards some equity for those educators to have access to the same amount of mileage and reimbursement resources for as their peers. So that would be the total tax levy is $672,600. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions about any specifics contained within our budget.
Supervisor Ernst.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. So just to clarify, the levy is actually decreasing for your budget for this year, or your request on the levy is decreased for this year, right?
Could you repeat that, just to make sure I understood it?
Sorry, so your proposed budget is, it says, there's a decrease of $30,000 or 4.38%. So
Yes, that is correct.
And you feel that even with these decreases, you're still able to meet like the needs of the people that use the extension?
Yes, yes. Was very, very carefully went through when that opportunity provided itself for that position to switch. Very carefully went through the opportunities that we had. We are, and this is Wood, so we are fully staffed as based on our plan with our full contingent of program support and our educators. So I am very confident that within this next year that we'll be able to at least meet our plan of work or our proposed plan of work with what we are set to accomplish.
All right, and thank you. And then just out of curiosity, which like program is, I don't know, most used coming out of the extension, would you say?
So the most used program would be our 4-H program, and there's two facets to that program. There's our 4-H community club program, which is our membership program that is that has, and I have it right in front of me, in the 2022-2023 year, had 709 members. That is an increase of 53.1% members, or 53% membership increase over the previous membership year. So that's a healthy, strong, the management and the support. So not only is it the educational activities, but it's also the management of those volunteers and all of the paperwork and stuff that goes along with a chartered. The 4-H program is Wisconsin. Wisconsin Extension is manages the 4-H program on behalf of the United States Department of Agriculture. So it is USDA's youth development program. So they in turn have granted Wisconsin the ability to charter the program. And so in turn we have our 4-H educator and our 4-H STEM educator who are the ones that serve to manage, do the management pieces and also ensure that there are educational programs for those youth to participate in. The other area, and both of them are growing, but our financial security educator, Todd Wenzel, has had a significant increase in the amount of the individuals that he's able to reach. An example of a research-based program that he provides, there's a couple of different ones. One is Rent Smart. That is to provide individuals just with some basic education to provide some financial education specifically about being good renters. The other one that he has the opportunity to provide, he actually was an author of the program and is nationally recognized for the work along with the team that he worked with, is Reentry Ready. It's a financial security, kind of a financial security basics program for individuals that are nearing release within the institution. So OCI and Winnebago County Jail are two places, examples of where that program is administered to provide that base level of financial education for those individuals who are near release.
Supervisor Haran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director. Couple of questions. We are moving on to this priority-based budget. How do you coordinate with Land and Water, USDA, and state agriculture? And I have asked essentially this same question of the health department regarding rent, smart housing, and food.
Sure. So one of the things, our mission is we collaborate and when I had mentioned we try to provide increased capacity, and there's a couple ways that we do that. For example, with land and water related issues and agriculture related issues, in many cases, land and water, for example, may administer the programs which would help get dollars into landowner and producers' hands to be able to implement conservation practices or other mitigation do and comply with other mitigation. Extension educators have the opportunity to provide additional education on areas such as what is the optimum rate of fertilizer to apply to a certain crop to be both maintain high yield, but to ensure that there is the least amount of runoff that might enter either groundwater or surface water. So that would be the educational component to enhance those efforts. That would be pretty consistent to be able to provide those additional information to allow our producers to make good production decisions and support the programs or projects that would be implemented by, say, Land and Water or partnerships with other federal organizations. Another example with that is that there is currently a, not housed within Winnebago County, housed in Outagamie County. There's also a natural resources educator that is hired by Extension, which is part of an NRCS grant that is essentially a basin educator, part of one of the watersheds, to help promote good practices and promote that those research and educational efforts. So this would be where the value added, where this is individuals from the area watersheds are getting benefit of UW expertise without without funding any additional individuals. As far as other partnerships in other areas, so both the educators that we have on board, plus myself, are in consistent communication with our other county departments to ensure that we are collaborating and not duplicating, that we are working together. So for example, there are in the areas of, so specifically, and I was here earlier, specifically in the area of nutrition and food, Extension is the administrator of a program called FoodWise. FoodWise is a program that is federally funded. It's a federal grant for the Supplemental Nutrition SNAP-Ed, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and FNEP, Emergency Food Nutrition something. So what Extension does is help support. So for example, any of these emergency funds are administered through Department of Health, through WIC or other programs. Extension provides additional education to those individuals and those families and or those community organizations that impact them to allow them to utilize both their benefit dollars or their existing resources to be able to stretch them as far as they are able to make sound, good fiscal decisions while also helping increase the nutrition. So that's a partnership that we work with our partners in a variety of different ways. And as far as financial education and RentSmart, I had mentioned Todd Wenzel, our financial security educator, is going to begin a series of doing the reentry ready within the Winnebago County Jail. It's the same program that he's been doing in the Oshkosh Correctional for about the last four months or so. Those are some examples of how we're working together to ensure that we are complementing and collaborating with each other.
Okay, I don't see any other lights, so I thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
So we have parks next and the boat launches.
All right. Good morning. It's been an exciting year in parks. This is my third budget process. I've been here since May of 2021. And I just want to share a few things as it relates to the budget and our programming and some of the things we've been working on, and ultimately what's really exciting is how it's going to fit. We started some of this data collecting even before the priority-based budgeting was going to be going in or implemented. And so I just want to share a few exciting things in the Parks Department as it relates to budget and our department. We started, as many of you know, our BAGO, Be Active, Go Outside program this year. What was exciting about that from a budget standpoint is that it was all through grants or really local donations to make that happen, and partnerships with PDS Fusion, with Oshkosh Recreation Department. So it's a net neutral zero budget. And then also exciting, over the last 2 years, the Sunnyview Expo has been increasing in rentals this year, and obviously we had PGI. I guess that's something to even say on its own in terms of another big endeavor we took on this year that it did definitely require more from my staff. And to date through this year, compared to last year, we're already 29,000 more than we were for all of last year. So we anticipate to end about 50,000 over last year, which is really exciting. We're right now about 8% above. Another really exciting thing is a lot of times when you talk about parks and recreation, because we don't have, not like the Oshkosh Rec or Neenah or Menasha where they have programming and you have numbers, but we actually started putting trail counters and car counters. My first year here, we started implementing those out at a lot of our different sites. And so eventually, through the priority-based budgeting and through presentations to the board, I'm going to be able to share some of our data with that. And I just want to share a few numbers real quick. So the Silent Bridge that I know was reconstructed by this board and came in the middle, actually, of when that process was going on. We actually saw from April to September of this year with the trail counter on there, 28,000 people cross that bridge. Now, granted, keep in mind that's back and forth because you have to come back. So take that in half, but still, it does show, so, it's still a significant amount, 14,000 people that have crossed that bridge in such a short time. We have a trail counter out at Westwind on the Wyowash Trail. Westwind is kind of our biggest trailhead other than maybe down by UW Oshkosh. We saw 27,000 people cross by that trail counter. Once again, Wyowash is pretty linear, probably came back as well. So, about 14,000. And then Grumman Boat Landing, I just picked one of the boat landings, and I picked it from July of last year, July this year, because it's been closed this year. But because that project's ongoing, I just thought I would share that as well. We saw 57,000 cars in a year go through that boat landing. And that's not even our most popular, because our most popular is Black Wolf. So that's just really exciting data that we're going to be able to compile and share as we go through our budgeting process in the future. And then also just one other thing that's exciting is shelter rentals have increased by 18% this year through just our extra advertising and keeping things up at the park. So those are just some of those. In terms of the highlights of the parks budget, and there's not a whole lot within that budget that's different to last year, just some things I'll highlight. We did, if you recall, I think it was March, April, so we already had a lot of shelter reservations in at that point. We did increase the shelter fees at the parks. We also are going to anticipate, we're increasing our anticipated revenue for the expo for 2024. So that's why that revenue went up so much, because we're basing it off the last 2 years. You'll notice kind of just a little bit of a shift, a little bit of shuffle with our equipment maintenance. You're going to see a big decrease from highway and an increase from vendors outside, and that's just simply because they're they had enough mechanics earlier this year, and it's kind of fluctuated. So we just want to anticipate that now going into next year. If they have more mechanics and things, well, then just the one will be lower, and we'll go back, or more will be in highway again. Through equipment, we're asking for a trail groomer, so we don't have one right now, to groom the Wyowash Trail, the Mascoutin Trail, our gravel trails. We have about 15 miles of trail, so that definitely will be helpful, make it a better experience for our trail users. And then our expo, we need a new floor scrubber for the main expo area. We've been having a lot of maintenance issue with it. One thing I just want to point out, just because I know it's been a topic as I've been listening to the board meetings or the budget hearings, is stormwater. Parks, you'd think with a lot of grass, we would not have as much. We actually receive, I just did the calculation this morning just so I could update so you can get a better picture of a couple different departments. We're actually 101,000 in stormwater fees throughout the year. Expo has a lot of impervious surface, so does the community park with all the different parking lots and shelters, and then our shop. So just really just providing that for information. And then our boat landing fund, Eureka, we do have, so our boat landing fund is meant to raise funds to be able to do the repairs within that budget. We're at about 140,000 roughly in that particular in the boat landing fund. So we're planning to do Eureka, which is a $125,000 repair for the landing itself, the concrete landing. We're having issue, rebar is starting to come up, it's starting to shift. So we're going to be replacing that one. Poigan's another one where there's some rebar starting to show. So what you'll see, and my other piece to the puzzle, and you won't see it as much in next year, and this will be coming to the Parks Committee this month, and then hopefully to the board in December, but we're looking to increase fees for the boat landing. Because once again, we're looking to try to make that account more self-sustaining. So we can do more of these projects. Right now, if we were to do a project like Eureka, $125,000, our budget typically allows, in this year's budget, would allow for about $10,000 surplus each year. So you could do the math, it'll take about 10 years to do a fix like that, and that's not even including inflation. So we want to increase the fees so that way we can pay for more of those projects and maintain our landings through the fees. Those are the main items I had. And any questions?
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This probably predates your time with Winnebago County, but do you know when the last time the Parks Department expanded its staff?
We didn't expand, but we kind of reclassified things when I first got here, my first year. Director Collard was actually still in HR. We worked on that together, and we created a foreman position, so there was more movement within the department. And then we also, the Expo had its own maintenance staff, and the Parks had its own. We almost had a silo within our own silo, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So we combined all of that together into one working group. I know, the one thing I do know, our previous parks manager who retired this year, he had always told me when he first started, and he had been in his position for 9 years, that when he came into his position, I believe there was 3 staff, from the maintenance standpoint.
Okay.
Just the maintenance.
It's been a while. It's been a while since your team has expanded the numbers, and I think in that time you've taken on a lot of new projects, new properties, and things like that. Do you feel like your staffing levels are currently suitable for the maintenance and everything else that you're working on?
So we're currently working on it. Actually, we've been working on it for the last year. I did suspend it a little bit when we found out our parks manager was going to be retiring, so that way our new parks manager could have their input as well. But we're working on a park maintenance plan, and part of it is what level of service does the public expect, or do we expect to achieve within the Parks Department? At our current staffing level, we're able to mow the lawn and do a lot of those basic upkeep items. When I first got here, there were things like weed control in a lot of our planter beds or roundabouts, or some of the projects that that just took a back seat. Wakaw Creek is a good example. Actually, the storm last year, 2 years ago even now, that washed out where we had the tornado go through that side of, we have not been able to get to Wakaw Creek other than immediate safety concerns. But we need to reroute the trail, we need to fix some bridges out there, or approaches of bridges, and we just simply haven't had the resources to do that. It takes our staff, so we have 1 foreman and 4 caretakers, and we typically have, during our normal season, spring through fall, obviously winter we do a lot more project-based, whether it's painting buoys and that type of thing, but we have 1 person typically at the expo on average, and then it takes 3 staff 3 days to mow just the community park and the expo. Now, keep in mind we do have seasonal staff, but then come fall and spring we don't. And then so that leaves 1 staff, either whether it's vacations or projects on their own, and some projects do require 2 people. So we have enough to, it kind of depends on the level of service that the community wants. And so that's kind of really, what we have noticed with the expos, we've been doing a lot of events with 2 events now. We've been trying to, 2 years ago, we had a concert and a horse show at the same time. This year, Rick's been doing a great job trying to really pack in that, and Rick's our expo manager. We had a gun show at the same time as a horse show. We moved the horse show because of PGI, and so we didn't lose any. And so we've been trying to really try to get multiple events in at the same time, but it does create more cleanup and more maintenance from that standpoint.
And is that, oh,
I can provide a more direct
Yeah.
answer. There were 2 FTE added in 2020, which was just before Adam
okay,
started.
thank you very much. And when you go through your comprehensive plan, is staffing levels and that level of service something the comprehensive plan is going to look at?
So they look at it from a very general standpoint, and also from a standpoint of if we're adding new amenities, how does that affect staffing? But for the most part, it's more of a capital and how design of park and park acquisition or not, that type of thing. It's more capital.
Okay, and then my last question is going to refer to page 363, your programs, and since the last budget. And so when you talk about general park, special event support, and Sunnyview Expo Grounds private event management, you referenced the Collegiate Baja Race, the Pyrotechnics Guild International, and you've talked about other things, events and whatnot. Do you look at those as, maybe these aren't mutually exclusive, but are you thinking about them as, how do you generate revenue to make the park levy neutral or more, closer to that? Or are you thinking about it in the context of economic development, or where's that overlap look?
I think it actually has 2-prong, because obviously there's definitely economic development, there's tourism. We work closely with the Oshkosh Visitor Tourism Bureau. But it also, so it's a little bit of both, because we are also in that our facility, there's not many to compare it to that offer a higher up one would be the Lion Energy Center in Madison, for instance, with horse shows, but that is like an indoor arena. So that's, a tier up. There's only 1 or 2 other that are like us, and I would consider us more like a mid-tier. So we have to be careful of that with the price structure. Now next year, because we only have pricing through 2025, next year our expo manager and myself are going to be looking at our pricing structure going into 26 and beyond. So what we look to do is right now the expo, at least currently, breaks even actually, and there's a caveat to that, breaks even or a little bit over, not including the administrative staff. So not including Rick's salary and that type of thing. So materials, equipment, utilities, that type of thing. Ultimately, it would be great, like the boat landing, to have it to be self-sufficient within itself. So that way it would cover all the staff associated with it. Because we do have 2 weekend staff as well. They rotate every other weekend to cover the events on the weekend too. And then of course our maintenance staff that have a percentage of their time devoted to the expo.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Adam. You lost your person out at the county park there mowing lawns from the soccer club. Just kind of piggybacking off of Supervisor Skellinger's remarks. Are you going to staff that? So if the folks don't know, a gentleman was volunteering his time out there mowing the lawns, painting the soccer fields. They lost that gentleman. How are you going to staff that without that gentleman here anymore?
So as of right now, and that's where the Parks Department has a lot of cooperative partnerships. So OYSC, and actually honestly this is new news to me because they haven't informed me of that, but OYSC, or Oshkosh Youth Soccer Club, so we mow the general park area. We mow the soccer fields, we mow the outfields of the baseball fields. The painting, the goal upkeep, the nets, even fertilizing the fields, OYSC takes care of that. So at this point, my assumption would be, because they haven't approached me saying it's an issue, is that they're going to find someone else to paint the lines. Because the county doesn't buy paint, we don't pay for a painter, we don't, so as of right now, we have it structured so that way, if the clubs want to use it, that they're painting basically any of the infrastructure that's soccer related, we mow the grass. We do maintenance to the irrigation, that was down for the first half of this year. So basically any of the infrastructure, the bathroom facility, that type of thing.
Thank you. And then looking at long-term economic development, traveling the state, going to these other soccer tournaments, you know, we're maybe probably towards the bottom of the barrel for soccer fields, soccer complexes, that kind of stuff. I can tell you that that brings in folks from all over the area, and that's something that we don't currently have. Is that something that you're working towards, bringing more folks into the community by updating our current facilities and fields and amenities?
Yeah, one of the things we're looking at is a Spirit Fund request. I know Executive Damo mentioned it, that would be Monday night now, in regards to, and I think he even said about a $3.5 million request, going to the Spirit Fund Committee in the next month or two, have the presentation ready. Basically, we're looking at a couple prongs to it. We're looking at sustainability, maintenance, and then part of that is the users. Our soccer fields, we have people that they're turning away. And part of it is because our current fields were established, many of them in 1993. A lot of them just need to be, I shouldn't say just because it is expensive, but need to be recrowned, need to be regraded, and some of them need irrigation. The park has gotten better. The park used to always be underwater. We've added ponds. We've added a lot of things to obviously keep them dry during the season. But what we're looking to do within that, rugby is actually another good example that they have the only complex right now with 2 full-size, and then the 3rd rugby field is not full-size, but they have a couple large tournaments that come in. UWO has some teams that play out there. The youth groups, they have teams play out there. We have 36-hole disc golf. I mean, there's a lot of amenities we have out there that bring people in. And the soccer, with that, one of the things we're going to be looking at is regrading 4 of the fields that are the worst, and then adding an additional full-size field, which then can convert to either 2 smaller fields or, in theory, even 8 of the really small fields, the U8 and under. So we are looking at, but with that, it's not just going to be soccer because we do have the rugby groups. We have other groups out at the parks, other properties other than the community park, too, that need maintenance help and work as well.
And one final question, looking at partners in the community, and I bring this up because Marathon County has a park and they have sponsors, their fields, their amenities are head and shoulders above our facility here in Winnebago County. And I do see that they go outside looking for sponsors in the community. Is that something that is in your comprehensive plan or will be?
It's something that we're always open to, not even just in the comprehensive plan. I've talked to two of the bigger groups, United and OYSC, about because they've always had interest in improving the park and whether a premier field with lights and turf and that type of thing. I've always talked to them about, if we can create these partnerships with sponsors and bring it to the board. Obviously, if the amenity can be approved or made better with sponsorships, I'm personally all for that because obviously that's not coming from the levy or taxpayers, and it's benefiting obviously the users and the taxpayers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Briest, my question is regarding the Life Fest stage. I've been on the board since they removed the racetrack to build the stage, and there really has been nothing other than Life Fest out there. Have you put any thought in working with promoters on getting any concerts in?
Yep. So we, was it last year or the year before, but we met with, we did an RFP, actually, so it would have been the year, so it's 2 years ago. There was an RFP already in process when I arrived here. First, they talked to a group in PMI up by the Rush Center that runs that facility. It wasn't going to work out with them. Then we did a RFP nationwide. We did get I think 2 or 3 interested. The one group that kept going was from Iowa. They actually made 2 or 3 visits out here. They, at the end of the day, said it wouldn't be feasible from their standpoint for a return on their investment to run the facility here. I know they run 1 or 2 also in southeast Wisconsin. So they're familiar with Wisconsin, and they run in a few different states. We've also, we had a group not this last year, but the year before, that said Red Rock Production, they put down a $15,000 deposit. They were going to bring out Kid Rock or somebody. They canceled. They put that deposit down a year ahead of time, and they canceled in June. We kept their deposit. But so I know there's been groups that have tried. We do monster truck shows out there. Obviously, the fair uses it. there were, I'm drawing a blank. It wasn't going to be a monster truck show, but another type of show that was going to utilize that space. So we truly are looking, if we can't use it solely as a concert space, it's a large space. What can we use it for? We actually had a conversation with a promoter this year, but they just never gave us their safety plan or even a layout of the track. They wanted to come in, essentially build a short track, and then remove it afterwards. So there has been some interest, and we're open to all. I mean, we made it pretty far in that process, but they just never, without safety barriers there and anything anymore, we needed more of a safety plan. So we're trying. Obviously, PGI was out there. They utilized that space heavily. So.
All right, thank you for that.
Yep, with the county fair.
Since you brought up stormwater, I want to ask you a question. When you said the 101,000, that's the park and the expo?
That's the park, expo, and then the shop, the workshop.
Okay. Nothing on the Wyowish Trail that goes through the city, do you pay stormwater
No.
for?
No.
And all the boat landings are out in other
Yeah, the
municipalities?
boat landings don't either.
So they didn't get us there either? Okay.
Yep.
What was my other question? Do you, the boat landing fees, do you have a price that you're looking at?
So as of right now, we are, so we did it through the budget process, and you won't see an increase in next year, and I can explain that. Obviously, I can explain it when it comes back after Parks too, but the proposal at this time from the County Executive Office and Parks is that we're going to increase the yearly rate by $5. Right now, it's $35, and we'd increase it to $40, and I actually have that sheet here, so here we go. And then, so right now, we have a 3-year pass. The 3-year pass is basically you get your third year for free. So the proposal is to potentially eliminate that third year for free and still offer a 3-year pass if you want to lock in your rate, or if you don't want to have to get you don't want 3 stickers on your car for 3 years, those types of things. But that is the fee increase we're looking at so far. So the 3-year, just an example, the 3-year then would go to $120. Now, in comparison, I did compare 7 other municipalities, counties that basically, in our area, that run boat landings. And the most comparable is Brown County because they're on large bodies of water like Lake Michigan and the Lower Fox, or popular bodies of water. They have 8 landings. And they currently they don't have a 3-year pass, and they charge $60 per year for their pass. So, we'd still be $20 under them. Now, the city of Oshkosh is basically, they match what we have right now.
Do you have a lot of people buying the 3-year pass, get the 3rd year free?
We do. We do have quite a few. Actually, our permits sold in 2022. We had 155 3-year resident, 3-year resident, 113 non-resident, and 232 3-year senior.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Quick question. When I was looking at this, the boat landing fees that were, not with the increase or what have you, but I know that I thought that we had, and I don't know if they're in yet, the machines, right? We were going to do those. That's not in there yet, and that's not reflective of this.
Right.
Correct?
So that was approved in September for through Spirit Fund.
Mm-hmm.
We have to work with Alliant Energy on a few sites to get power brought in. So that's already started. Facilities is working with my staff to get concrete pads, and they're going to work with electricians to get everything ready. Grunman we're definitely going to have ready because that cash machine's out of there already. It was out of there when we started the project. And I'm just finalizing a few details with the vendor, like credit card processor and just some cell connectivity things if we need a booster or two at 1 or 2 sites. So those will still be in by this. The goal is the start of next year. It might be like a month into the season, but those will be in.
Now, so if somebody comes in and out and they haven't paid it all, that's still, unless we see that they didn't pay and they don't have the thing in their window, right?
Correct.
Right, but if they do it anyway, it's not like it'll notify you that, no, okay.
No,
It's
there's not like a
the trail
sensor at the
cameras
gate
or whatever.
no.
Okay.
So it's our park rangers that go around. Yep.
And then the other thing is, I didn't see anything here about a new pickleball thing. Sorry.
That's more part of a Spirit Fund request.
Okay. Just check it.
Yep.
I'll just say, when I started in the county, that was in the 90s, I believe they had 7 or 8 people working full-time at the Parks Department, and then it gradually went down, and they did have the electrician and the plumber. They were employees of the Parks Department, and facilities thought they could better utilize them, so then they lost those 2 employees, never got them replaced. And now we can't get enough college students to mow grass. We have to basically get high school kids to mow. And this summer I drove by, and where you drive into the expo, you can see a big ditch there. Well, I see that mower stuck in the ditch. He drove straight down there. Anybody would know you can't drive in that ditch. But when you're 16 years old and you really don't have a lot of experience, you know, it's really hard on equipment. And these mowers are expensive. And we're taking somebody that, you know, if they were raised on a farm, they might really be somewhat knowledgeable on farm equipment and be able to mow grass. But we're taking whatever we can get, because without that, we'll have nobody. So I think it's to the county's benefit to increase at least one position for the Parks Department. And we want to have somewhat of a medium standard. Like the village of Winnebago took one of our parks over because we couldn't take care of it. If you go and look at Kenny Robo Park, it's a disaster, but we don't have the manpower. You know, we get these things to take, like the Jerry Finch Dog Park. It's great. I love having a dog park, but you cannot give somebody another 2 parks and just think, well, they'll take care of themselves. If you want to create parks, you have to give them the labor to manage the park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Brees, question for you on that $101,000 for the stormwater. A couple things came to mind on it. I'm not sure. You may have already looked at them and written them off that they're not feasible. Geosystems, there are little squares that are put in the ground, and you fill it full of gravel or something like that. Water just flows through there, and I don't know if the stormwater folks would approve that or not. That might be one option. The other option, we own an awful lot of land. Couldn't we put lakes in and do our own stormwater treatment in the lakes?
So we, a couple things with that. So, yep, definitely familiar with the GeoGrid. If you can fill it with actually soil, because actually if you fill it with gravel, unless you, and potentially like the impervious pavers, maybe the city would work with us on that. Just because those are designed, or actually there's an example out at the Coughlin building of those being done. Obviously there's a little bit of more maintenance of that, but so when we did the Expo project, we built 2 ponds. When we're looking to do the second phase of the Expo project, or the last phase of the Expo project, that would include another pond. We added ponds to the community park. All of those did provide credits to the county, and I know shortly, it was 2020 or 19, shortly before my time, there was, the previous director did hire a consultant to look at our stormwater to make sure that we couldn't go to the city and see if we could have a good case for getting it lowered. So at that point, they said that we were on track with their current rules and restrictions within the city.
Okay, just as long as they're looking at it. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Director Breest. I just wanted to ask a couple questions. Will working in tandem with solid waste on the Ken Roble, is that going to be a future possibility?
So I want to emphasize a couple things. First of all, we do work well with solid waste. Actually, I was John Raby and I, a few of the different things that we were looking at. So the pond treatment, I know that's been talked about before. Yeah. Maybe it should have been done sooner, but we did work. I worked with a consultant this fall to get that process started, but the DNR, through the permitting process, said that we need to do it in late spring, early summer. So that'll happen next year. Solid waste is going to pay for that. We have some, which is a good thing. We have a lot of wildlife out at, which we like at the parks. But so a lot of the trees have been eaten, the different types that they did plant. So we're going to look at planting, rather than those evergreen variety, basically looking at planting more just deciduous trees. And solid waste, once again, said that they would help pay for that too. Now, granted, yes, there's a manpower question in terms of planting them and removing them and some of those types of things. And so we'll continue to work with that. I do want to applaud my parks manager, who only started in July. Now, granted, he was our foreman before, but he had a lot of good ideas. And since then, unfortunately, I couldn't get a picture yesterday because there was snow on the ground. But the trails out at Ken Rollbar are looking really nice. They have and hence, like what I was saying, we're working on a park maintenance plan internally, and to identify all the needs and the level of service we're going to provide. And now they are on a regular schedule for being sprayed. And he has some ideas with box scrapers and that type of thing to continue to maintain them. So I think we have a lot of good new ideas and fresh ideas also coming into our department. So.
Yeah. Thank you. One other question, please. So do any of the fishing or conservation clubs pitch in to help maintain some of the various boat launches?
Not in recent years. Definitely advice and that type of thing. Like when we did Grunman, they were all at the table in terms of providing expertise and advice of what should be at the landings and how to, with the redesign and everything. But no, I mean, obviously, we could work with some of them. They use a lot of different landings throughout the county, whether it's the cities or Nina's or Menasha's as well. So there's definitely partnerships we could look to with them. Ultimately trying to get the fund self-sustaining, which it is self-sustaining to a certain degree now, other than, once again, it's kind of the same caveat to the expo, other than staff. It does cover the ranger, but like our maintenance staff. Yep.
Yes, thank you. Adam, the one question I have is I see that the boat launch fees are going up, but when I look at, and you're putting in the monitors, which I support 100%, and I know in Winnie County, when we got the monitor up, we could take credit cards. We saw a very significant increase in the people that were actually paying. But when I look at the revenues, it shows that you're anticipating only a $3,000 increase in revenues, unless I'm reading something wrong.
No, you're not. I apologize, because I remember when I first started talking about the boat landings, I said I was going to get to that, and I didn't get to that. So that's a good question. So one of the things that we have to do, so if we switch, if that gets approved or the fee schedule gets changed, one of the things we have to anticipate or try to anticipate and guess is how many people will switch from the 3-year pass to a 1-year pass. Because keep in mind, the 1-year pass is only another $5. So, and how many people currently have 3-year passes that don't need to renew for 1 or 2 more years? So what we did is we made an assumption that basically 400, and without getting into the nitty, I had all the, obviously, how many people have been doing the 3-year, but I took the data, and out of those 500 people, we assume 400 are going to switch to 1 year, and not why, just for whatever reason, why pay all of it at once. So we didn't want to overestimate, especially on year 1. Now, we might get surprised next year, and everyone's like, well, it's still more convenient. I'll just get the 3-year, be done with it. And then we will see, obviously, more already next year. So how we anticipated it was that year 1, the proposed fees for just the 3-year passes, keep in mind, we would make $28,000. That would be $8,800 actually less than we're making now. Obviously, the 1 years would go up a little bit, though. And then in year 2, we'd be at $44,000, so we'd be $7,000 ahead. And then in year 3, we'd be at $60,000, so we'd be $23,000 ahead. So by year 3, when kind of the 3rd year free is essentially phased out, because it's going to take about 3 years to essentially phase that out, we will be making $23,000 more just on the 3-year difference. So that's a good question, though. So for next year, when we did the math, we felt more comfortable keeping it even for next year, knowing it's going to go up year 2 and 3.
You estimated conservatively.
Correct, because we're taking a guess. Actually, Director Collard and I worked on that together. We took an educated guess.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for coming, Director Briest. I was just curious to know, last year, I believe the Parks Department gave back $250,000 into the levy. Do you have an estimated amount for how much we're giving back this year? I couldn't find that in the book.
Sorry, I'm trying to go to the last page.
Okay, and I probably missed it, so I apologize.
We adopted or revised Our revised budget is $1,892,000 in turn, or sorry, I apologize. I need to look at the levy. 11554. And we are projected, when we did these projections we updated them a little bit even during our budget meetings, to 1513. So at this point, we're projecting about 40,000.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And at this time, we will recess until, okay, I guess the register of deed is here. I guess we'll do her first.
Oh, well, thank you. I was, of course,
And then
so we're not recessed.
we'll do the register of deeds and then we'll recess.
Thank you for putting me in. I'm Natalie Strohmeyer, the Register of Deeds. My revenue is down this year due to the low housing availability and the high interest rates. Overall, throughout the state, we're at a 30-year low. We, from last year, are only at a 23% down, so we're still doing better than the average. But housing is terrible for trying to find something. The other thing we did this year is we switched to tagless scanning because our machines were outdated and we'd have to switch them all. And so we went to tagless scanning and returning the documents through a program that's called Swift. It's all done electronically. We've heard a lot of good results from that through the title companies and attorneys and that, how quickly they get the documents back in the same day, and they don't have to download them and wait for the mail. They can just put it in their system and it saves them time too. So that's been a positive savings. And just since May when we started, just postage alone, I know it's a small amount compared to your whole budget, but just in postage, we saved over $550 since May, plus the envelopes and the staffing that you would add on to that. So with us being a smaller office, every little bit helps. Other than that, I'm just going to open it up to you guys if you have any questions. Just so everyone remembers, I'm not on the levy, and I still managed to stay off the levy this year, which scared me at first. That way they can go to lunch. Thank you very much.
Recording stopped.